lost that.
No, but the
10th inning and then lost 6
I
to
think
5.
the adjustment
And some Dodgers.
being sent through the Ready to Learn block grant instead of the EF,
That's painful.
Basic Education Funding Formula. Previously, they thought that they would distribute it through the BEF formula.
Right.
So they're sending it through the Ready to Learn. And I had gotten an email prior from Hasbro, but then we got an email today that says
Exchange
uses.
about
So
15
pretty much,
now. If he did with the
so pretty much,
Well,
I
it's
think
6
there's
and
stuff
2.
on the list that we can use to reduce our current expenditures that we don't have to necessarily add
Might have
new
been wrong.
to our budget.
That was the first time for everything, Fred.
I saw cyber on it. It's like,
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, there may be some things we.
How many days did you work last week?
It's up first, I think. Up here. I think I have Devin. I haven't seen the night.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good.
Way better.
Well, just let me get rolling here. I don't know how long this site logic might take a while. We have to kick this. Fair to problem if we don't get it. But it's going to be selfish. You ready? If you just turn it over and speak.
Ready?
We are.
Hello and welcome to the Shippensburg Area School District Committee of the Whole meeting. To kick off our meeting, I'm going to open the floor to Dr. Donat and Mrs. Luffy regarding the cell phones and learning.
Good evening, everybody. So with the cell phone policy for the high school, go ahead to the next slide. Let's start with why the policy is needed. The policy is needed really because of our district priorities of engagement and well-being. So our job as educators is to engage students in learning and to keep them safe. And research is very clear that cell phone and social media negatively impact both things. The second reason why we need the policy is for consistency. We want consistency between buildings. This policy is already in place at the middle school. And we also want consistency between teachers and classrooms. Current practice can vary by class. This policy will make it consistent between classes. Another aspect of consistency is in enforcement, that a formal policy helps all teachers to be consistent and allows building administrators to be consistent with consequences as well. The third reason is that the high school staff requested this policy. This was the most requested item for the building to address. 16 of the 59 teachers in the building rated this as the #1 issue to address. Next slide, please. The next slide for you talks about national, state, and local trends. So nearly 80% of US schools prohibit non-academic use of smartphones. You've also probably seen the new Pennsylvania state legislation that says a district that applies for funding for those lockable phone bags must have a policy in place prohibiting the use of cell phones during the school day. And then on a local trend, 50% of last year's simple assault, aggravated assaults, fighting, and cyberbullying that occurred at the high school involved social media. So by adopting this, we should also be serving student safety as well by reducing the likelihood of those incidents. Next slide. So our research on learning and engagement, I have a lot of stuff up on that screen, and I do have sources at the very end for you to look at. But really what the takeaway is that the research is clear. Learning is impacted if cell phones are present, even if they're turned off, even if they're turned off on the desk or turned off and in a bag or in a pocket, it still impacts student achievement. Next slide. The other thing that we wanted to talk about was the mental health crisis. And as we've discussed as a board previously, the incidence of mental health crises are dramatically increasing. There's some statistics on the screen for you to look at. Next slide, please. And there is a distinct correlation between mental health and cell phone and social media use. So we have multiple studies that are talking about how the more students are on their phone, the more likely they are to have mental health crises, including depression and self-harm and sometimes even suicide. The other final point on that slide is that banning cell phones reduces incidence of bullying. We're finding that in multiple states and in multiple countries. Next slide, please. So I know that this is a topic that does concern our community, and as I'm looking at the community concerns, I wanted to address some of them today. So one of the concerns was the comment that the cell phone is an extension of the Chromebook, that they're basically the same thing. And I wanted to refute that by saying our Chromebooks have filters in place that block social media sites and that prevent them from going into the bathroom with a Chromebook and filming students. There's a lot of differences between the Chromebooks and a cell phone. There was some comments that this policy does not align with Board Policy 237. Board Policy 237 actually gives building principals the discretion to adopt policy that's in line with school board policy to vary how much cell phones are used or to limit cell phone use. Another concern was about health exemptions for students potentially with diabetes or other issues, and of course we will have common sense exceptions based off of medical reasons. I know the community is also concerned about their ability to communicate with students. You will still be able to communicate with your student. You might have to call the office, you might want to call the guidance, and the office will allow the student to take your call. And then this is the one that I know really bothers people, and it's if the unthinkable happens. The district does have emergency protocols and reunification plans in place, including communicating with parents if ever something horrid like that were to occur. So I want to underscore that this is really about student safety. This policy addresses mental health safety and the physical safety of our students. Next slide. And now I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Luffy to have further conversation about how it will be implemented.
Good evening. So the first step is to make sure that we're communicating it out with the stakeholders that are involved here in the school. And so I started in my July parent newsletter that we were going over the reason and the rationale as to why we were making this change for this upcoming school year. I followed up in the August newsletter with additional information, and then I will be following up with additional editions of my parent newsletter with reasons why we need to have this change in place. In addition to the July newsletter, just going over the cell phones, I did invite parents to join a book study, which Dr. Donat actually referred to some of the statistics from this author, The Anxious Generation, and he just talks about the crisis of the smartphones with our students today and all of the mental health concerns that come with that. The students also received my newsletter to the families, so they've been seeing it, as well as we will be having class meetings the first day back to school, making sure that we are clear on our expectations, as well as using our other methods of communication with our students and announcements, Channel 74 News, or Gmail, and all sorts of other forms of communication. And my faculty and staff have also been receiving emails from me over the summer. And then again, at the beginning of the year when we have our in-service, we will be going over the expectations for implementations, as well as different scenarios of what to do and what not to do. The expectations for the cell phones is that they will not be used in classrooms during instructional time, that they can be stored in lockers, in cars, at home, in their book bags in their lockers. They can be lots of different places, but we would prefer that they not be in the classrooms during instructional time. One difference from the middle school policy to the high school expectations is that we are allowing students to use them during our lunch periods, which is an unstructured time. And so that is one major difference between our expectations for cell phones and the middle school. How we're going to respond is the same format as is in the middle school handbook that's been approved before. It's a tiered system with progressive discipline. So the first offense is 1, the second offense is a little bit greater, third offense, et cetera. So it's just a progressive discipline model. Some questions that I've been hearing and that Dr. Danette kind of alluded to is like, what if I need to get hold of my child during the day? Or if what you would do is you would call the office or the guidance office and we would call your son or daughter out of class. They would come down and speak with you. If you need a private room, we do allow students to use offices so that they can have private conversations. And vice versa, if your child needed to speak with you, they can come down to the office or the guidance office and ask to call you, and they can, again, use our phones and call you. What if my child needs to listen to music during the day? Students can access music through their Chromebook. So we've already checked with the tech department, and that's capable for students to use music throughout the day. There is an instructional model that we use, station rotation, which allows students to have an individual station where they're working independently. So that would be an ideal situation where I think teachers may allow students to access music through their Chromebooks during that time. And then, like Dr. Danette indicated, if there's a school emergency, we're going to follow the same procedure that other administrators and other buildings would use in K-8, following our safety protocol that our whole entire district uses. So basically, we're following the expectations that Mr. August has on engagement and well-being for our students and our staff by allowing students to be involved in their learning and not worried about the latest post on Snapchat, et cetera. As well as my faculty and staff requested a stronger stance from this probably for the last 6 months, whether it was in committee meetings or at faculty meetings. This was a concern of theirs. So we are responding and listening to them as well. Thank you.
Questions from the board for Dr. Donat or Mrs. Luffy?
I have a question. I have no problem. Are the teachers willing to enforce this?
Yes, I would say so. By the percentage of teachers that felt like this was the #1 concern that we needed to address over the summer, and what they have shared in faculty meetings and committee meetings last year.
I know some students, they don't use their lockers. They carry bags all day long. So if they carry it in you don't want it in a building, or they carry it in their bag? Or?
I would prefer that it not be in the classroom. We're not going to be the cell phone police. Like, we're not going to be like, hey, it's in your back pocket. But at the same time, if it goes off or they forgot to turn it off and it becomes a disruption, like that's when we would follow the protocol of having it in the classroom during the instructional time.
Okay.
So I think that my biggest concern with all of this, I just want to go back to board policy 000 that states that the board shall make the final interpretation of its policies. And that's paragraph 1 under limitations. And when we're looking at policy 237, which is the electronic devices policy, it names a number of different items which are considered electronic devices, but it also states like when and where a student can use these electronic devices. And there is a big difference between what a handbook states and what we're considering policy. Handbook is not policy. Policy is board policy, which we approve and the board gets to interpret. And handbooks need to align with what board policy is. This is one of the newer policies that we revised on August 28th of last year. And it states that these devices, it prohibits the electronic devices in locker rooms, bathrooms, health suites, but they are allowed to have these devices at lunch and in the hallways. So my biggest issue is that the handbook is conflicting with what policy is, and I think that we should not, that we need to differentiate what is policy and what is the handbook.
Is that for Mrs. Lovey or?
Yeah, like for anyone who wants to, I mean, literally last year, you know, Mrs. Spizak spent a lot of time working with the administration, aligning the handbook to policy, and if it was a board oversight last year with the middle school, then, you know, that's an error on, I'll take responsibility for that oversight, but seeing that discrepancy now, policy needs to align with board policy, which, you know, exists for a reason.
If there's contradictions within our policies, we need to get them straightened out, I would think. From what you read, I believe it says they're permitted in the hallways, in the cafeteria. Is that what it read? Yeah, so I don't know that we're going to be policing those areas.
Which we clearly articulated that we are permitting students to use them in the cafeteria. Like students can use them during lunch.
Yeah, so whether that needs clarification, because I don't know how you can get to a classroom.
I mean, the policy says the board prohibits use of electronic devices in locker rooms, bathrooms, health suites, and other changing areas. The board authorizes use of electronic devices in the classroom, and cell phones, earbuds, smartwatches are named as the electronic devices. So it's very evident that the policy 237 is not aligned with handbook, and I
believe Mrs. Spizak reviewed both the handbook, or all the handbooks last year to make sure that they did. You know, I would have to double check.
And it also says that, I mean, for educational or instructional purposes, cell phones could also be used, you know, in the classroom.
Yeah, I would think that would go to the discretion of the teacher. You know, if there's something that, hey, we need you know, if you have a cell phone, today's the day to bring it. I mean, I think we have to look at the bigger picture, which is, you know, what are the distractions that are happening in classes for kids? What are the things that are impacting instruction? Clearly, we've heard and observed that cell phones are an issue. And so it's really figuring out how to have a reasonable approach to managing cell phones in high schools and middle schools, for that matter.
So I think if there is a policy conflict, we need to figure that out. But I think anyone who has spoken to a teacher in the high school about this knows that this is not just about someone's phone ringing and disrupting a class. This is about students using phones to, as one of the earlier slides suggested, to plan and then carry out, for lack of a better word, nefarious activities that get students into trouble and harm students and potentially faculty. I just wrote a report up for one of our community organizations looking at the PACE data, and our bullying numbers are above the state averages. And so we need to do whatever we can to bring those numbers down. And if people are engaging in or planning bullying activities using their cell phones on school grounds, which the PACE data suggests that is happening, we need to get this under control.
Should a change happen, how much time would you need to institute a policy to get rid of the cell phones?
Well, we're asking that it be put in the handbook this year so we can start the school year setting the expectations.
Okay, thank you.
And I would just point out, we have a specific, you know, if there's a policy conflict, I think we would go to the 237 electronic devices as the preeminent, you know, voice on this. And, you know, clearly, you know, it talks about where they can be used and for what purposes, you know, and gives the building principal, you know, some leeway in how to determine those things. So I think that's what's moving this forward in both buildings, you know, just one before the other. And the high school's catching up.
So I don't want, I mean, I don't think we're trying to turn this into a legalistic argument, but I mean, in my reading of 237, it's not like saying like, hey, you can always use your phone. I mean, it says maybe authorized in areas as determined by the building principal, and then it says as follows. I mean, you can read that like, for example, the building principal might allow these uses, right? But in my reading, that heading is really saying like, they're allowed, but it depends on the building principal to decide how they can be allowed. And so the handbook proposal fits, I think, perfectly within that interpretation. Now, if that interpretation needs to be improved so that we can, like to reduce the ambiguity, great. But I don't know that what is written here should prevent us from moving forward in approving the handbook.
Yeah, and I would just point out that I think part of this impetus was looking at the middle school and the relative, disparity between the issues with cell phones at the high school and the issues with cell phones at the middle school, and to mirror their approach, which is kind of what Mrs. Lovey described as, if it's a problem, then it's a problem. And it's really, I think, about, empowering teachers to have and be consistent with the enforcement of it. Previously, cell phones weren't permitted to be out and used in class. So is there that much difference between what you had and what's now articulated better in your handbook, right? Okay.
What are the pouches for? Do we need the pouches in this?
We're not doing the pouches.
We don't need the pouches.
So currently, I mean, there's money for those pouches. My advice would be, I've been in this game long enough to know that you can throw a lot of money at things that, 3 years later, you're scratching your head why you did. If we get into the pouch game, my recommendation would be to be a pilot, in certain classrooms to see how they work, and if they're worth, investing money in.
Whether you got a pouch or not, if the teacher's not willing to enforce it, it doesn't make a difference. So,
Pouches are usually used at the beginning of the school day.
as long as they're willing to enforce.
So two things. One, Dr. Donat, you talked about the social media websites and things that are like banned and unavailable to be on. The only thing I would ask for that is I think I know the answer to this, but like, let's say instead of texting our friends during the school day, like we see Chromebooks and we then think, oh, well, I'll just email my buddies during the day as a form of communication, but that would all be tracked, I would assume. Like we would be able to see if kids are, completely doing things they shouldn't be doing.
That's my understanding, but I
Okay.
would defer to Dr. Stevens.
All right, and then the second thing is, and I'll be the one to go over, but the unthinkable you mentioned about, like as a parent, I have all of those same concerns. And then as this is all like unfolded, I thought back to 2 years ago on the second day of school, we had this like potentially really bad situation. And I myself as a parent had a first grader who spent like 3 hours in a bathroom with the lights off because of what was potentially going to happen. Well, she didn't have a cell phone. But I went through the protocols I contacted the Nancy Grayson office and everyone there and got reassurances of things and updates on things as they came. And credit to those people that I talked to that day. They did wonderful. So like that, like I hear that argument, but I know our K through 3 kids, for the most part, I would be willing to bet. As a parent, you don't have access to just send your kid a text to find out what's going on anyway. So while I totally understand it, I also think that, if you say, it's just not the same. You're apples to oranges, I guess, because those younger kids and those parents of younger kids don't have that instant access because, at least I hope we don't have a bunch of first graders running around with cell phones. But so that would be my only other comment on that. So I do understand this. Everything that I've heard, and then just from maybe as an employer, from that aspect, I think there's a major concern with young people entering the workforce that are attached to their cell phones all the time. And I think that's been pretty common. I think that a real thing that kids struggle with is basic communication skills, 100%. I think that if I said that wasn't true, I'd be lying to myself. So I do think that this is a way to, force kids to engage in being more involved in communicating effectively with one another, their peers, their teachers, their administrators, and everything through the course of a day. So,
And if parents needed to get a hold of a student or communicate with a student, they could send them emails, correct?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so, I mean, it's 6 one of half and half dozen of another, right?
So 8th. So that's just for high school that they can communicate.
Okay.
K to 8, you can't have outside emails communicate. But
Okay.
high school, you can.
Okay. Any other questions from the board?
I don't have any questions, but I'm just super excited about it. I think we have to do this, and we have to enforce it. And you know, I don't know. I'm excited for it as a community. I'm going to have a 15-year-old at home who's not very excited about it, but it's too bad because this is good, good evidence-based management of our kids.
And moving forward, I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, realistically, this is just enforcement of things, and we're going to use a common sense approach to it.
Similar to the book bags last year.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Site logic, Rochelle?
Good evening. So I'm here to give an update on your Phase 3 projects. Tonight I have Tim Warner with me. He is our Director of Pre-Construction at SiteLogic. So he's been working on the estimate for our public bid. So he is here to answer any questions that you guys might have that I might not be able to answer. So I'm going to start out with the stadium project update. As you guys can see, the earthwork out there is moving along to establish the field. They're doing a lot of the storm management system. They're putting in the underground electrical conduits. That's why you see kind of the bypass you had to do tonight, because they had to go across the roads. They are starting to establish the concrete curb around the field. So things are moving along quite nicely on the stadium. I know one thing that's in front of you tonight is a change order for changing the color of the scoreboards to get more of a custom color to match your existing boards. Any questions on the stadium? There's a couple pictures if you want to. Oh, one more. Yep, so some pictures of some dirt. So moving it around the first two, and then the third one is kind of part of your stormwater management detention pond there. And then there's a next picture. You'll see that the forms of doing the curb that will, again, receive the turf from your field and also be on the other, your track will be on the other side of that curb. So any questions on your stadium?
Just, so we're on track, we're on time?
Yeah, things are moving along nicely out there. They've had great weather. I do know they're waiting on the change for the color of the scoreboard. That is on hold right now until we get that. But otherwise, things are moving along well.
Rochelle, can you give me a refresher of like timeline of completion?
December.
So December for the bleachers to be completely done, you know, so the whole thing done in December. But I think we'll have the track and the turf done by the end of September. Is that accurate?
I'll check with John. I didn't know exactly that date, so I'll check with that. I know that the track's coating has to be done by September, so I'm going to say that's probably in line, but I'll double check and get back to you with the exact dates where it's tracking.
Yeah, the last update I had was September 30th. You know, I don't, you know, the hurricane coming through may have thrown that off by a couple of days.
Yeah, that'd be minimal. Anything else on the stadium? Okay, moving into the asset protection project for the summer of 2024. So we have completed all the ductwork installation. We installed the supplemental structural steel to receive some of the new units. We have actually set 8 of the 19 units. They have gotten started up today, 7 of them. The one will not get started up until we do the work in the library, but we actually did have a chance to set it, so we did that. We have reestablished all the ceilings everywhere, and everything is cleaned up and ready to go for your start of school. And the remaining 11 units and that associated work will take place next summer. We are going to maybe try to work in the boiler room if we are given permission to do that over the winter, just to knock that out before the summer starts, because the summer of 2025 will be busy with the 11 remaining units. So any questions with the asset protection project? And again, that's just a picture of one side of the ceilings down, the ductwork going in, and then on the right, the reestablished corridors getting ready for your start of school.
Not to put you on the spot, but as a GISA project, we will experience some energy savings out of the project, maybe a little bit?
When it's all done, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay. Yeah, the DOAS units alone that have been set, there are 5 of them, will help just control the humidity and the working of your other units energy-wise. So yes, you will see savings from that as well. Yep.
We say asset protection a lot, and just for the benefit of anybody watching and people in the room that don't build schools, can you give like a 30-second overview of what we're getting by completing this project?
Yeah, so what you're getting is you're revamping your HVAC system that has seen its life through your existing units. The new units are much more energy efficient than your old units. So by replacing them, the main part is you will see a reduction in your energy bill. Not only that, but they will work more efficiently in maintaining a better condition throughout your building. And it's just, some of the equipments just get to an end of the life, and it's just maintaining your building. You don't want to let it go too far, so it's easier to replace things as you go in chunks instead of waiting till the end. So we call that kind of asset protection. So you're protecting the asset, which is your building.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, anything further on that? Okay, then we're going to move into the Phase 3 public bid project. So we have gotten the latest drawings from EI Associates and K&W. We have started doing a constructability review of them. So we're going through the drawings and seeing what we feel that might be needed changed or addressed before it goes out to public bid. Tim and his group has done the construction document estimate, which is what I'm going to present tonight and show you how that compares to the design development estimate that we presented earlier in, I believe, at the end of May. We did a page turn with the district today. We went over with the district and described everything that was going on in the project architecturally, mechanically, electrical, plumbing, with everyone, and it was time for the district to ask questions so that just everyone knew what they were getting in this project. So I think that went well. Bill, I don't know if you have anything you want to say about the page turn.
My first one, and
No?
enjoyed it.
So we're coming down the pike now to the end of the design and getting ready to go out to bid. So I will present the construction document estimate to you, and then tonight we're also going to talk about the next steps in order to go out to bid, which we would like to do at the end of August. So, but first I will go over the estimate numbers with you. So again, that was just a rendering of the high school additions. So what I tried to do is if you remember last time, we presented the design development estimate, and then we moved some stuff around. You moved the sidewalks into the base bid. So I tried to compare apples to apples so that you can see where the numbers were going from the design development estimate to the construction document estimate. So this is the high school portion. This is what is considered the base bid. So after our meeting last time, we again moved the sidewalks that the borough is requiring into the base bid, and also we put in the high school realignment of the road in the back in the base bid, since that will have to be done no matter what you guys decide to do with the parent loop. So as you can see last time, the design development estimate was at $6,226,025. Now it is $5,844,500 is where it's standing. So the price was able to go down. The better the documents have gotten, lets us estimate more precisely. So that's where Tim and his group was able to find some savings. So that's why you're seeing that number come down. However, between the two estimates, between the design development estimate and the construction document estimate, some things have been added. So you can see the list at the bottom. The borough is asking us, or requiring us, I should say, to add a water meter pit, similar to what we had to do at the middle school. There was also a firewall change, and what that is your new addition, where it butts up to the existing building, has to be basically a self-contained addition, because if it wasn't, you would have had to sprinkle your entire high school, which would have been a very large number. So the original firewall construction that the architect had on the drawings, the code official had them change. So that change is you're going to see a $71,500 add because of that particular change on the firewall. And you're going to see that not only at the high school, but you will see that cost at the middle school as well. Not as much, but the same condition existed. Another thing that has changed is a snow load modification. Because your new additions are much higher than your existing building, snow is going to drift, I guess, against the new addition, and therefore it's going to put more load on your existing roof that it was not originally designed to do. So there's going to be some modifications needed in those existing rooms to address the snow load because of the new addition. So we are still working with EI Associates and their structural engineer to see if we can minimize that. The $220,000 add that you see there is the worst case scenario. They've already have found another way of doing it, which is going to reduce that cost, but we have not seen the complete design, so we did not want to change that number yet, but there is a potential to reduce that number. Excuse me. And then the one other item that was discovered were some telecommunication lines behind your high school that will have to be relocated to receive the two additions back there. And so we are working and put some money in for that was not in the original drawings on the design development estimate. However, between the adds and the deducts of the high school, you will actually see that they are really not that far off. So there was about a $30,000 increase between the design development estimate and the construction document estimate for the high school. Any questions on the high school? Sorry. No questions on the high school? Oh, okay. We'll go to the next one, which will be alternate number 1, which is the middle school. Actually, you know, you can, yep, there you go. So same thing, same pattern, did the design estimate under the budget column. Originally, your middle school was showing around $1 million on the design development estimate. Right now, you're about up to 1.385 on your middle school. Again, 2 changes at your middle school, same as the high school, firewall change, the snow load modification. However, at the middle school, we have already confirmed with the structural engineer that he can eliminate that if the architect reduces the parapet wall and slopes the roof the opposite direction than shown in the design. If they do both of those things, that $111,000 can be minimized or eliminated. So we're waiting for confirmation from EI on that. So right now, the middle school is at 1.588, where you were at about $1 million. So that is up slightly from before. Excuse me. And that's just a rendering of the middle school edition.
And that's a pretty large music room, right?
Yes.
Middle school.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Last time, if you remember, if you go back to my presentation, last time we showed you renderings of what that would look like inside.
Excuse me.
Yep.
Excuse me, right? Oh, where is that going to be located at? That's near the band room we have present, or?
I'm not sure where your band room is present. It's on kind of around the corner from your cafeteria, looking. I'm not sure of your roads, but
So
like your
that road that goes down to Eberly, so you come up the middle school and you make the right where, you know, it's on this side of the building, Fred.
Like where the
It's on
student
the
drop-off is?
Park side of the building.
Okay.
Okay, next slide. All right, and this is the middle school parent loop. We decided, it was decided and talked about last time, making this alternate number 2. So this will be the parent loop, the bus lane, the middle school parking, the alignment of the parent entrance at your high school, and about 9 additional spots of parking elsewhere at the middle school. So last time that bid was at 2.76. This time with some savings that we found, and also moving some of the money for the middle school, a little bit of site work associated with the middle school. I believe it's a bus turnaround. We moved that to the alternate with the middle school, so that brought this number down a little bit as well. It was shifting in that money. So originally, last time you were at 2.7, now you're almost at 2.4. So there was a cost savings there. So next slide.
Yes, I got. When do we have to do that loop now?
The loop is an alternate.
Yes.
So when the bids come in, you guys can make that decision if you want to do it now or if you choose not to do it. It is in the land development approvals with the borough. So if you guys decide to move forward with it, it's all ready to go, but that's a decision the board will have to make when the bids come in.
So I can do it in 2, will it affect anything if I wait 2 years?
It will affect, I mean, sure, pricing will go up.
Other than pricing?
Yeah, we'll take it out of this project, and you guys will have to put it into another project at some other point in time
I know
if you choose to do
we're looking at
that.
the middle school, intermediate school, we're looking at elementary schools, and that's my concern, that if this can wait till we're done with all that, then I might be more favorable to it.
Yeah, that would be a board decision. And then alternate number 3 is middle school and actually some high school lighting that you got for a grant. So we did have a meeting today, and we did narrow that scope down. So we have a very good understanding of what's needed at the middle school to be added for the alternate. I'm actually going to do a survey of the high school tonight when I leave to see where additional lighting is needed at the high school on the outside. So that work will be placed into an alternate as well. And then when the bids come in, if the board chooses to move forward with that work, you can do so as alternate number 3. Next slide.
Can I just add that we have grant money to pay for that part too?
There's grant money for the parent loop as well, right?
Correct.
Not all of it, but a lot of it.
So this is just a summary, easier for you guys to compare to make it simple. So under the budget for the design development that we presented last time, your project was at $10,187,711. Currently, the design development estimate for the same project plus the adds and the deducts that we found, you are now at $10,354,354, which is only a difference of $166,000. And within that difference, like I said, there is still potential to reduce it depending on how they resolve the snow load issues. So there's still potential for more savings. But right now, between where we were at the end of design development, where you are today when we're getting ready to go out to bid, there's only a $166,000 difference.
Rochelle, just like Dr. Lyman said, this does not include the multimodal transportation grant money, which I think was $450,000.
That is correct.
So it's really 9 something. I mean, if that goes through,
You
if
take that
everything
money
gets
out.
approved.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, but I just
That's-
wanted to compare apples to apples because we didn't take the grant money out of the design development either. So I
glad-
just wanted to
we're
make
glad
sure
you
we
did
were,
that.
yeah, comparing apples to apples. But yes, you can reduce it by your grant money.
So, and then, this might not be a question for you, but it's a good question. If the what do you call it, multimodal development grant, that needs to be used now?
Within 3 years of
Within
receiving.
3 years, okay.
Receiving it.
But there would be, this is a you question. There would be expenses because we already have shovels in the ground and we're already doing construction, so it's probably cheaper to do it now than to wait.
Not only that, but as you wait, just naturally, it's going
Inflation
to go up.
and prices are
Inflation
gonna
with
go up.
cost and everything, so it will go up, yeah. So it is cheaper to do it now while you're doing the rest of the projects, because you're not going to have to pay additional management fees later for the contractors. The equipment's already going to be here. They're already mobilized. So it is the most advantageous is to do it now.
Thank you.
So moving forward, like we said, we are to the point where we would like to ask the board for approval to go out to bid. This does not commit you to doing the project, but it will allow you to get real bids and have real pricing to compare to the estimates. So we would like to do that at the end of August. If you guys are good with that and approve it on the 26th, we will be out on the street on the 27th. We will go out to bid for 3 weeks. We will then come back and we will share those bids with the board, and then the board can decide whether you want to do the base bid and all the alternates, whether you want to just do the base bid, whether you want to do the base bid and alternate one and nothing else. So that's a decision that the board will have to make, and then the contracts will be awarded. After that, we would like to break ground in October to take advantage of the good weather so we can start the foundations for the new additions. The parent loop, if you guys decide to go with that, probably would not start till March, just because it makes no sense to start it and let it sit there over winter. So we would start that in March, and everything would be ready for your school in August of '25.
So that's the item on the discussion agenda, correct?
Correct, sir.
So is there any questions regarding that? Nope.
Thank you so much, Rochelle.
Okay, thank you.
Just as we transition a little bit, moving to a little bit of a different system. If you're planning on speaking during public comment tonight, there's some cards that you just can fill out in the back there. So, it's a little bit different than just kind of writing on the paper. So, if you, Dr. Donat has them. So if you're interested in speaking, I'd just ask that you fill out a card and then send it down to, I think Mrs. DeLong can get it to us, okay? Next up, we'd like to go to the district branding update presentation. Won't spend a ton of time on this. For the board and the community's edification, we're looking at our official logo, which is the SASD letters, and thinking about a refresh of that or maybe a new branding. So we talked to some professionals about this, and they gave us a number of options. The plan is to put out a survey to the community and the students and the staff to kind of get feedback on which one of the logos resonates with the most people, and make a change from there. And I will say up front, I did not ask for my picture to be in this presentation. They did that without my consent or knowledge. So you can keep rolling through. I just want to take a look at the pictures. So first one is just our kind of Greyhound that we have in our kind of S, and that's going to be on our field and is already on our gym floor, but kind of with a rectangular background. The idea of rebranding is that we have a consistent message. If you search Shippensburg Area School District images, if you pull that up on Google, we're all over the place. So we want to make sure that we're representing ourselves with some consistency and coherence to our different not only official correspondence, but also, on our shirts and graphics. So this is option number one. If you want to keep rolling down, that's what it kind of looks like in different phases. Those would be you'll see some repeats here. Keep going, please. This is what it kind of looks like if we were to put different wording with it. So obviously the one on my right, or hopefully it's your right too, is the more common one that we use in a lot of sports. And the general idea is that we maybe have a sports athletics logo, but then an official one, and this is those two kind of compared, one for academics, one for sports. You can keep rolling down. And it's just some other iterations of what it could look like in different forms. Keep rolling. Yeah, keep rolling. If we were to get some signage, that's what it would look like. Banners. And you're going to see they do the same things for all of them, in terms of, the same, what it would look like. Keep rolling, please. The next one is that, elongated running greyhound, facing to the right with a shield. Keep going, please. That's kind of what it would look like there. Some iterations there. And then side by side, keeping that consistency. And what it would look like in different forms. And continue to keep going. Some signage. The next one is a variation of that, kind of a dog going to the left behind a shield. You can keep going, please. That's what it kind of looks like, going in both directions. So a similar one, but facing the right, facing to the right, the one you just saw. Gives some consistency in the direction our greyhound is running. That's probably the best shot, what that could look like. I would point out, we definitely want a distinct greyhound. There's lots of greyhounds on the internet. We don't want to, we want to make it unique to Shippensburg. It's another interesting one. So, it's a good reminder of iteration and throwing lots of ideas out. We're not sure if that's a greyhound or giraffe, but it's pretty close. Okay, so those are the options. There'll be a survey coming out with all of them, including just the S one, including our old one if people have nostalgia for that. We'll send that out to folks and report back to the outreach committee on what those results are, and hopefully move forward with it. So that's all I have on that for the board.
So that concludes our committee of the whole. We will have a brief intermission for about 6 minutes before we get into our planning and action meeting.
Greyhound with the flying nun design on the top of the head with the ears there.
Why do we need two different designs?
All right, we are back to start our planning and action meeting. Christy, can you do roll call, please?
Mr. Jim Bard.
Here.
Mr. Mike Carey.
Here.
Mr. Levi Kressler.
Here.
Dr. Nathan Goetz.
Here.
Dr. Michael Lyman.
Here.
Mr. Kurt Noggle. Mr. Fred Scott.
Here.
Mr. Darren Donovan.
Here.
Mrs. Steph Eberly.
Here. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. As we begin our deliberations this evening, let us once again be reminded of our duty to represent all of the children of this school community, regardless of age, sex, race, or creed, and regardless of need or ability. This meeting is being live streamed and uploaded to the district's YouTube channel. May we now have a moment of silence to reflect on our thoughts, plans, and actions on behalf of the students in the Shippensburg Area School District. Mr. August, are there any changes to this evening's agenda?
There are. There's one. There's a change to 6M. The cost of the decodable books is actually $900 less to $47,807.45. That will be noted on the next agenda. Six M.
Now moving on to the citizens' comments regarding agenda items. Please, is there a motion to approve item 1F to approve the agenda?
Fred Scott, make a motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Scott, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Carey. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Citizens' comments regarding agenda items. Please identify yourself by name and address and indicate which agenda item you are speaking about. Address all comments to the board as a whole and make sure they are in the form of a statement. Questions will be taken under advisement. Responses to questions will be offered after due deliberation and will be provided by the superintendent at the direction of the board within a few days of the board meeting. You'll be allowed 3 minutes for your comments. Comments relative to private student matters or personnel issues should be directed to the appropriate school authority outside of this meeting. The presiding officer reserves the right to interrupt or terminate a participant's statement when the statement is too lengthy, personally directed, abusive, obscene, or irrelevant, or not related to an agenda item. First, we have Mr. Tim Hess.
Hello, everyone. Tim Hess, 60 Diller Drive, Shippensburg. I'm here tonight, and I passed out, everybody up here got a copy of the agenda and the menu for everybody's favorite Greyhound Community Night. So I'm here today to welcome everyone, both in front of me, behind me, watching on YouTube, to the annual Greyhound Community Night, which is going to be this Friday. It's going to be held inside Sashes from 5 o'clock to about 8 o'clock. We usually get done a little before 8, but I always put down 8 just in case. From 5 to 7, we have 16 different Greyhound clubs that are going to be selling all kinds of great food, drinks, and some of them have spiritware to sell. Some of them also have some raffles coming up, fundraisers that they'll be trying to sell some tickets to. It's all that portion of community night is all a fundraiser for all of our booster clubs. We also have Sam's PTO coming, and we also have, just as of yesterday, we have I can't think of the name, it's not the March of Dimes. It's the new group, the Thon.
Mini-thon.
Mini-thon group. They're going to be here selling some Greyhound spirit wear as well. So from 5 to 7, like I said, there's selling food, drinks, spirit wear. All this is going to be set up mainly in the cafeteria. We're going to do like a semicircle around the outer portion of the cafeteria so people can walk around. And we're also going to utilize the cafeteria lobby area in the same way. We'll have outside the portion of the lobby, we'll put tables up and all the booster clubs can set up their different merchandise and foods. So we wish everybody, the event is free, so you can come and enjoy the evening. There's no cost to come in, but we encourage everybody to come hungry and ready to support all the different booster clubs that make up our school. Following that, at 7 o'clock, we're going to start the pep rally portion of the evening, and it's going to be led by our amazing Greyhound marching band and the cheerleaders. We're going to, at this time, introduce all of our fall teams. They'll have their captains or seniors come up and briefly talk about their upcoming season. One thing we do ask is that anyone that is attending, plans to attend, to come through the high school through the rear doors like you're coming in for a basketball game, wrestling match, a play, a concert, anything like that. We do wish you'd come back in through those doors. Other than that, we just look forward to seeing everybody there. There's a lot of food that's going to be available. So like I said, come hungry and ready to support the different booster clubs. Thank you.
Thanks, Tim. Next, we have Christy Eckert.
Good evening, Christy Eckert, 411 Westover Road in Shippensburg Borough. I'd like to speak first about the phone policy that has been presented this evening, and I appreciate the work that was done on it, but I find that it is falling short. Undue demand on the teachers to police the policy will occur if this is enacted. And while 27% of the staff may have requested something to this nature, it is not the majority. I counter a better proposal that some teachers are already using, which is encouraging the phones to be turned in at the beginning of the class and then picked up at the end of the class, and then awarding bonus points at the end of the year, extra credit points. It's always better to entice someone than to just ban. Consistency is an abstract when dealing with different ages, and we already see exceptions with the policy that was provided tonight. Use during lunch, use in between classes. Bullying can happen at that time. Just preventing it from being in the class doesn't mean you're preventing the bullying from happening if that is the main concern. Cell phone technology is embedded in our day-to-day lives. I guarantee almost 99% of you have a cell phone right now. Somewhere, something, technology. We use it every day. Banning it is not going to teach our children responsible use of technology and the social media that is attached to it. We need to work for better critical thinking skills, and media literacy is what we should be pushing. And that is not just banning. Bans don't work. We see that with sex ed. We see that with gun control, other things within our society. Bans don't work. Responsible use and education is what we need to provide for our students. Mental health issues existed before cell phones and they will exist after cell phones. Again, we need to look at better resources for mental health and what we can do to teach our students responsible use, again, of the technology. The information that was provided in the presentation tonight seemed to be a little dated. The only one source was a recent source from 2023. Most of the information dated back almost 10 years. And we know that things change exponentially faster, especially with the use of technology. So I would ask that we look at better sources for media, and especially look at places where they're using more critical thinking and responsible social media use. Anecdotally, my niece is a recent graduate of another school in the Poconos. 2 years ago, due to the Safe to Say program, a violent event was averted. And it was only because the student that reported it through the Safe to Say did it in that moment on their cell phone. They didn't go back and dig out their Chromebook. They were afraid if they did it on their Chromebook, it would not be anonymous. But they did it on the Safe to Say on their phone, and actual lives were saved that day because they saw something and they reported it through the Safe to Save program. So again, if they had been banned from using their phone, we wouldn't have had that prevention. When the high school had a fire a few years ago, my oldest child was a student, I only knew because he texted me. I never got notification until later. Is that the end of my time? I
If you have some
appreciate it.
comments to
Thank you
finish
so
up.
much. I'm sorry?
If you want to finish up your comments.
And engagement is not an issue in the classroom because of phones, but because many teachers are simply defaulting to Chromebooks. They're taking a few minutes to introduce an item and saying, okay, go look it up on your Chromebook. We know that we need our teachers to be encouraged in classrooms and provide that back and forth that is needed during teaching and not just reverting to the technology of the Chromebook and reading. You know, teachers are there to teach, and we need to support our teachers that they can provide the engagement within the classroom. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mrs. Eckert. Isaac Wolfinger.
Hello, board members. My name is Isaac Wolfinger, and I'm a senior at the high school. I live at 214 Grayson Circle. I'm speaking to you on agenda items 4C and 5S and asking you to vote no. I'm a very shy kid. Speaking to you is not something I would normally do, but music is something that is important to me and to others. I began playing an instrument in the 5th grade. For me, music has been a huge deal in my life, my mental health, and my school experience. Music lets me forget some of the rough spots that happened as a teenager. Music has allowed me to make friends, memories, and show off skills that people don't typically know I have. In high school, for the past 3 years, I've been able to participate in marching band, concert band, and jazz band, with it being a club, with the goal in mind of meeting my graduation requirements. Jazz band as a club gives students, in particular seniors, flexibility to make sure we have all of our credits. When I got my schedule and I seen it as a class, I knew there would be a chance that jazz band would be ending, especially when we rehearsed last week and none of the kids were scheduled. This year with jazz band, I hoped for the opportunity to sit first chair or potentially have a solo. I've worked really hard to make that happen. Now I feel like that dream will never be fulfilled. I'm asking you to make a motion to add another music teacher in our district so that our high school band teacher can actually be in the building for Flex and to leave jazz band as a club. Thank you.
Thank you, Isaac.
Thank you, Isaac.
Becky Wolfinger.
Becky Wolfinger, Southampton Township. Hello, board members. I'm speaking to you on agenda items 4C, specifically the error on page 38, and agenda item 5S, and I'm asking you to vote no to both. Agenda item 4C, page 38, is not accurate because concert band, unfortunately, will not be a full credit course this year because we do not have the necessary teacher at the high school to run the program. Instead, administrators have opted to run jazz band as a class instead of a club and as a pilot program. You, as a board, did not approve this on the program of studies, and there is no approved curriculum for it. Even if it would have been left as a club, who would run it? Since your decision at the last board meeting where I tried to steer you away, Mr. Fike will now only be at the high school until 9:30 a.m. He has to leave his 2A class even before it is over. If you knew all of this would happen, would you have still voted yes? Did you know that music teachers will now be assisting and teaching a class in elementary for Profile of a Graduate? Was this approved by you? Can you honestly say teaching Profile of a Graduate to kindergartners is more valuable than a music program that affects 74% of our district? The decision to move it to a class did not allow students to have the option during scheduling to schedule this as a class on their upcoming schedules, nor would they have been able to because of trying to meet so many graduation requirements, which is why it was a club in the first place. By running this as a class, you are jeopardizing a core piece of culture in our community. By allowing students to select this class, there is no way to ensure you will have the 20 students needed or the instruments to be represented to make a jazz band. Meaning, when there aren't students signing up, it will be an easy way to just do away with this core group of musicians like was attempted last year. Not only is this taking away the opportunity, but Mr. Fike will no longer have the ability to work with kids who want to audition for district band, county band, or college auditions. Did any of you know the true ramifications of your vote last month? Neither did my son, who just spoke, Isaac, who is a senior, or the 90-plus students who are feeling like they just don't matter. To run our music department successfully, we need administrators who listen to the 7 professionals throughout our district and are collectively responsible for 2,700 students. They are begging for another teacher to get rid of some of the load and ensure our programs do not end. And my recollection, Mrs. Luffy, the principal here, has had it on her personnel request list every year. Imagine tomorrow if I came to you and said, well, we're eliminating football, Fred. We're getting rid of softball, Jim. Or, hey, Levi, sorry, but basketball's gone. Or imagine having to go to those same coaches and say, hey, Coach Faust, you're now coaching football, cheerleading, and golf. Would you want to solve the problem? Or would you just say, okay, let's let Faust do that this year, and next year, then we'll hire a coach? We spend $1,033,815 each year just for the central office administration salaries, not including their perks. We have now invested millions in athletics and added new coaches. Tonight, if you vote yes to agenda item 5S for a new assistant business administrator and add yet another central office administrator, I want you to stare into the faces of every one of these kids as you say yes, because you are saying no to them. There is no bigger investment than our students and teachers who teach them. Please make a motion tonight and add a music teacher and do not let jazz band go away.
Thank you, Becky.
Just to clarify to everyone, jazz band can happen as a club at the high school. Talk with Mrs. Luffy today. We have those options available to us to have a music teacher there. It may not be Mr. Fike, but there will be an opportunity for jazz band.
Grace Durst.
Good evening. My name is Grace Durst. I am a junior at this high school, and I am speaking on agenda item 4C, page 38, and I'm asking you to vote no, since the information shared is incorrect. I'm also asking you to vote no on agenda item 5S because we need a teacher more than an administrator. My journey in music began in 4th grade, and since the 6th grade, I've been a dedicated member of our district's jazz band. Music has been an integral part of my life for the past 7 years, shaping who I am. I left this high school last year for personal reasons. I also left behind the very thing that defined me, music. That's why I returned to reconnect with the passion that has been a cornerstone of my life. Music is not just a hobby or an extracurricular activity, it's a form of expression that resonates deeply with many of us. Studies show that learning music is akin to learning a new language with profound effects on the brain. It is disheartening to think that such a vital part of our education and personal development could be diminished. And for students like me who may not be interested in sports but find joy and purpose in music, the opportunity to engage in this passion at school is crucial. Unfortunately, I find myself unable to fit concert band into my schedule for the 2nd semester. 2 years ago as a freshman, I had the flexibility to play my saxophone outside of marching band because jazz band has offered as a club, not a class. This year, no one was informed of any changes during scheduling, leaving us with what I fear will be a severely diminished jazz band. The Evening of Jazz has been a tradition I've cherished, both as a performer and as an audience member. The thought of spending my last 2 years of high school without being part of this event is deeply upsetting. Our school should be a place where students are encouraged to learn, grow, and pursue their passions, and by cutting back on creative and musical opportunities, you're taking that away from us. It seems that the focus has shifted disproportionately towards athletics, leaving those of us who thrive in other areas feeling overlooked. I urge those in charge to consider the impact of this decision on students like me, who have worked hard to cultivate our musical talents and who find meaning and fulfillment in this pursuit. However, a viable solution exists: hiring an additional music teacher. With another teacher on staff, we should ensure that all students have the opportunity to participate in band and jazz activities without the constraints of scheduling conflicts. This would allow the continuation of a vibrant music program that benefits not only the students involved, but the entire school community. Please find it in your hearts to preserve the opportunities that allow us to express who we are and to continue growing through music. Thank you.
Thank you, Grace. Sharon Lawrence.
Hello, my name is Sharon Lawrence. I live at 234 East Orange Street. I'm a physics teacher here at the high school. And I just wanted to speak this evening. I wasn't initially planning on it, but after listening to the comments earlier of the board and from public comments, just thought that since it's been brought up a couple times about what the teachers think, maybe we should say something. So it is true that we have asked as teachers that we have a more consistent policy. It does make it much easier for us to be consistent if the policy on cell phones at the high school is consistent. And so this is something that the teachers have been asking for. Are there caveats that if we absolutely needed to use something for an educational purpose, I'm sure that we could work that out. But for the most part, we do not need cell phones to make our classes more engaging. We have the Chromebooks. If we need to access video, if we need to access anything that is technology driven. So I just want to put out there that yes, the high school teachers have backed the addition to the handbook, and it is something that we asked for. Thank you.
Thank you. Sandra Pearson.
Hello, Sandra Pearson, Southampton Township, and this pertains to keeping jazz band as it was. I'm the mother of 2 Shippensburg graduates. One was involved in music, including jazz band his senior year. I've always been so proud of the Shippensburg District's music program, and may have even bragged about it a little bit, of how wonderful it is. And I just urge you to continue to keep it special.
Thank you. Veronica Henley.
Hello, I'm Ronnie Henley, and I'm speaking on agenda item 4C for jazz band. I've been in band since 5th grade, and being in band has been an incredible experience. I've made so many memories in marching band, concert band, and in jazz band. Last year was my first year in the high school jazz band, and it was such an unforgettable experience. When I found out last year that the school attempted to cut the jazz band, I thought, who would ever want to take away such a wonderful opportunity from dozens of our talented musicians here at Sashes? And as Becky has said, can anyone even imagine our annual evening of jazz without our very own high school jazz band? Well, I sure can't. This coming year is my senior year, which means it's unfortunately my last opportunity to be in the jazz band. Band is not only a huge part of my life, but it's also a huge part of many of my fellow band members' lives, as well as graduated members of our band. Gracie Hicks said, "Band has proved to be one of my most important parts of my high school career. Jazz band in particular taught me the importance of discipline, time management, self-expression, and collaboration while allowing me to pursue my musical passion and keep the unique musical style of jazz alive." Kimber Beeler told me, "I have always struggled with my mental health, especially since my mom suffered from cancer, but I could always rely on marching band to always help me feel better. The energy marching band brings is like nothing I've ever experienced before. It is the greatest group of people I've been around, and it's where I have found my lifelong friends. Marching band has and will always hold a special place in my heart for all of the hilarious and amazing memories it has given me." Ava Weaver said, "Jazz band was my therapy when I wasn't able to do marching band. It's always been a passion of mine to play music of any kind, and as jazz specifically always sparked my creativity and inspired me to try and create my own music. Now, as you can see, music really does have an impact on us here at Sashes. If the jazz program was taken away, many students here would lose their joy, comfort, and happiness. Many of our students wouldn't be able to do district or county band, as well as students that need help with audition pieces for college wouldn't be able to work with Fike if he had to leave during the day, meaning there would be a sub during flex, and hiring a music teacher would be an easy fix. Another thing is that the school just added a class for jazz band onto our schedules, and there was no option before when we were scheduling our classes. Why is this being added to our schedules when it wasn't offered before? With jazz band as a club, it's easier for us to be able to meet our requirements for graduation, and if you hired a music teacher, Fike would be able to be here during flex, and we would be able to have jazz band. It seems like the district is giving up on our music department, and it's time to start acting now instead of quitting. Save the music." Thank you.
Dr. Adam Powell.
Good evening. wasn't planning to do this, so please pardon the appearance. I'm the father of 2 Shippensburg Area School District graduates, as well as a senior, a junior, a freshman at the high school, as well as an 8th grader, a 5th grader, and a 2nd grader in the upcoming year. So I have some skin in the game as far as what are the future programs of the school. I live Southampton Township, Franklin County. Sorry, I didn't say that. And I think it's 4C and 5S, as so much has been said already about it. I think what I'd like to add to what's already been said is what I've been impressed with seeing my 11th grader be lead alto sax, also play the bari sax in numerous functions in the high school, is I had never really paid much attention to the music teachers until Mr. Fike came on board. And he has really impressed me. He is, I think, very capable, very good with these students. And from an administrative perspective, I think we're sending him a very bad signal, sending someone who's working towards a master's degree, who has the ability to pick probably any school district he'd like to work at. We're sending a bad message to him if we're going to start sending him all over the district to teach different things. Not that I wouldn't like my 2nd grader to have him teach her music, but he has a passion in high school and has been a very positive influence, I know, for the high schoolers. And so to hear that he has to break up his time and potentially depart from what is his passion in the high school, I think that's a bit of a mistake administratively, especially coming from a place where knowing, that faculty need to see the support of the administrators. So that's the perspective I wanted to provide, that I'm seeing just as a father, that I don't want to lose this person for the next years of my students. My 9th grader is playing mellophone and marching band, for example. And I want her to have all the opportunities my 11th grader has had. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Powell.
I'd just like to maybe do some mass addressing of the music situation, just so that everyone's on the same page. So to answer some of the questions, the original administrative plan was put out to the music department at their request. They asked to modify it through working with Dr. Donat to come up with what they deemed to be a better version of it. That was permitted. So those questions about why is this coming so late? It was part of that process that went on for an extended period of time to land us on the more preferable schedules that work for some music teachers, but also filling in all the elementary needs that we have. I want to clarify that our profile of a grad classes at the elementary are additional classes within the curriculum where we're going to ask those teachers to go deeper and have more time for practice and work and projects that include work on our profile of a grad. So it's not really a new class per se, it is an opportunity to go deeper into those classes that are already approved. The things we should know is that Mr. Fike's schedule from last year included going to elementaries, and he taught classes at Nancy Grayson as well. And he is not the only specials teacher that travels to different buildings, even 3 of them. With at the time, a $3.5 million deficit, adding teachers is a struggle, and it is an administrative task to make ends meet instructionally and cover all the needs at a K-12 in a K-12 system. I think there is some misunderstanding that music is in jeopardy at Shippensburg. It is, in my opinion, not. What we've done is, temporarily, and that the jazz band structure was 30 minutes of jazz band instruction once a week as a club. 30 minutes once a week. The proposal is for coming out of all the discussions was the administration asking ourselves, how do we preserve jazz band? And the initial reaction was, there is room in the schedule, working with Mrs. Luffy and Mr. Fike to recalibrate some things. So I believe, and Mrs. Luffy, you can correct me if I'm wrong, we'll be offering marching band, concert band. We're bringing orchestra back. We didn't have that last year, correct? We didn't have enough student interest. And we would be adding a class that currently has 14 kids in it. Okay, and that meets every day of the cycle for a semester? Okay. And in talking with Mrs. Luffy, we do have resources at the high school that would allow there to be a jazz band class and a jazz band club, correct? Okay, so I think that, when you hear that, the district surely has a commitment to the music program K to 12. Additionally, the board is going to be making a decision at some point on, I believe, Rochelle, the number I just want to make sure is right, somewhere around $2.3 million of additional music space at the high school and the middle school. Was that number right from this morning? 2.6. My apologies. So the district is certainly investing in music and expanding opportunities for music across the board. Doing that with limited resources. Would we love to? Would I love to have another music teacher? Sure. But given the constraints that we have, we've worked hard to preserve what we have, enhance it, and expand things at the middle school. And it may not be a perfect schedule for everyone. I understand that. But I feel like I need to say that we are committed to the music program and have actually advanced it. So I'm happy to have individual conversations with people to answer any individual questions after the meeting. But I wanted to make sure that everyone was aware of where we are with the music program at the high school and other levels. Thank you.
Is it appropriate to ask a question at this point, or should we wait till the item comes up in the agenda?
Maybe let's keep rolling the meeting.
3A, the Franklin County Career Center report. We do not have one. The safety and security. Mr. Scott?
We had a meeting. You can go from there.
So the Safety and Security Committee met on July 15th. You see on the agenda tonight regarding district event staff, the committee was willing to move that forward for approximately 5 to 6 event staff employees. So you see the job description on this evening's agenda. The next step in this process is to determine a salary. So that will be coming soon. The other big ticket item on that agenda was our SRO program. So the Shippensburg Police Department was unable to provide staff and services every day and all day, so they floated the idea of a morning arrival, dismissal, and just acting as patrol officers and patrolling outside the schools at peak hours. The committee kind of determined that that really doesn't meet our needs. So we explored some options. There were some different options on the table. Was to, one, not have an SRO program, which the committee, that was not even an option. 2, take them up on their offer at the peak hours, and again, that really did not meet the district needs. 3 was to walk away and hire a private firm, which the committee did agree to explore a private firm such as G-Force. Another option that we are exploring are what it would take to build our own police force, and a proposal to also contact the Cumberland and Franklin Sheriff's Office. And option 6 was kind of just a hybrid type program. There is approximately $168,000 that was budgeted for the SRO program. So we've had great feedback from the different agencies that we did contact, but we are still waiting to get some of those details back, and then the safety and security meeting will meet again to discuss those options to bring a recommendation to the board. Another option or topic that was brought up during the discussion was the possibility of exploring a four-way stop down at Park Place and Eberly Drive, just because of the congestion and with students walking from the middle school, high school down to the Peace Garden, and or just walking to and from school and riding bikes. So that's kind of the cliff notes of the safety and security meeting from the 15th.
Also, the superintendent did try to get individuals to down at the intersection of Park Place and Eberly to direct traffic with the fire companies, but I don't think he had any luck. Right?
Did not have any luck there. We are potentially, there is someone who may be interested in being a traffic director. So we're hopeful with that, but I'm getting the shaking off that particular sign. So we may be back to ground zero in that.
All right. Policy committee, any updates there?
Policy committee, I believe we've met twice since the last board meeting, which is why there are approximately 24 policies for approval on the agenda tonight. So a lot of work was done, but we're rolling through all the policies.
Good. Curriculum report, Dr. Donat.
Hello. So I wanted to give you an update on all of the good work that has been happening over the summer while everybody else was on break. Your teachers, your administrators have been busy at work, waiting for the slides to appear. I wanted to give you an update on Summer Academy. Go ahead to the next one, please. So our Summer Academy wound up. We offered 19 courses, 6 middle school courses, 6 high school 1-credit courses, and 7.5 high school courses for a total of 19 courses were offered. Next slide. And you can see the number of students who participated, the number of credits that were completed, and also students who were not so successful. Next slide. For the dismissals, 22 students were dismissed due to attendance, which means they missed more than the appropriate number of days for a very truncated time period, and 3 dismissals occurred due to behavior. I want to thank the teachers for Summer Academy for the ways in which they engaged our students. We saw really good things happening, and I want to thank Greta Christ, who served as the administrator during Summer Academy, for all of the logistics, and Randy Bybee for providing transportation and doing all of the behind-the-scenes work, in addition to our guidance counselors who did a heavy lift with making sure we had the right students scheduled and then getting grades back in. So thank you to all of the district employees who worked to make it a success. Next slide. In regards to curriculum writing over the past year, and as evidenced by all of the agenda items you all have been processing recently, our teachers have been busy writing. This past year, we were to have written curriculum for music, science, and art that aligns with our Pennsylvania state standards. Right now, we have 16 music courses approved, 11 science courses, and 6 art courses, assuming everything goes through tonight. We will be bringing the rest of those courses and those disciplines to you early this fall. And then next slide, please. In 2024, we'll also be working with revising the STEAM health and wellness curriculum and library curriculum. So you'll start to see those courses coming to you in the spring. Next slide. And I did want to definitely thank all of the teachers in those disciplines. Writing curriculum is tedious, it's time-consuming, it's joyful because it's the subject you're passionate about, but it also takes a lot of time to do it and do it well. So thank you to all of the teachers who invested the hours in writing. For the upcoming year, our professional development plans include sessions on differentiation, training for different programs that we use, like IXL and iReady. There'll be professional development on safety, managing student behaviors, connecting in virtual courses, supporting EL students, letters training, classroom management, engaging lessons, and sensory issues in the classroom. So we have lots of really good things planned to make sure our teachers are well prepared to work with students in the upcoming years. And next slide. Is that it? Hooray, that's it. So thank you all for your support, both teachers and administration, to be able to get this work done to prepare students and teachers for the year ahead. I do appreciate you.
I'm sorry, I missed you right before you closed it. I just didn't want to interrupt her. But could you open that back up? And the slides on the Summer Academy on the attendance, I just wanted to process those numbers.
Yes,
We
please.
just flip through those really quick. If you just, yeah.
I think you want the next one, Leslie.
I think this is the one I wanted.
Oh, okay.
So, okay, so 36 students enrolled, 23 incomplete. So how does that?
So
I'm
think about it this
struggling
way.
with the
A
math.
single student could take one English class, or they might take English and math, so ELA and math. So a single student could be enrolled in multiple classes.
So we got 36 students, but we might have like 50 credits on offer. or
Correct.
something, Right, okay, and so
Correct.
then,
So if you total the 23 and 31,
so we're not saying
36
23 of
students,
36 students,
right,
we're saying.
36 students were enrolled in 54 credits.
Okay, 54 credits.
Mhm.
So 23, did 23 of possible 54 were not completed?
Correct.
I gotcha, okay.
Thank you for the clarification.
Wow, thank you. I was trying to process that, okay. And then on the high school side, we've got 25,
And they could take multiple courses as well.
well, and do we know how many, okay, so 23 credits completed.
And
So on offer was 31 and a half credits on offer,
Mhm.
or maybe 33 and a half because you get the two. Okay, thank you.
Sure. Other questions? Thank you all.
Thank you, Dr. Donat. Mrs. Lentz, the finance report.
Sure. Since our last board meeting, the state has enacted their 24-25 budget, so I wanted to provide the board and the community with an update of what that means for the district. There is a link to the state budget page should you want to read additional details about the education budget. So one of the things the state approved as part of the budget was the basic education funding. And so they actually increased the amount that they put through the funding formula. They actually added $225 million through the student weighted distribution formula, and then they added an additional $60 million to provide like a hold harmless relief to school districts. So you can see there between the student weighted distribution and the hold harmless, it gave the district an additional $443,255 additional through our basic education funding formula for the current fiscal year. Also, the state added money into the Ready to Learn block grant. So there was a lot of talk about adding an adequacy and tax equity supplements to school districts. They did that not at the level that the governor had proposed, at a reduced level, and then they're putting this through the Ready to Learn block grant. So the district currently gets $527,156 through the Ready to Learn block grant. They're going to put an additional about $1.28 million through that. So we will get the additional $1.28 million, or a total of $1.8 million in Ready to Learn block grant money. However, the adequacy supplement does come with some restrictions. This is really tiny, but if you go to the board agenda, I actually included a PDF that you can review them. I'm not going to read them all tonight, but some of the allowable uses of funding include full-day kindergarten, class size reduction for K-3, programs that improve the academic performance of students, math and literacy, programs that provide targeted support to English learners, and we can also use it for increases in cyber charter school tuition. Again, there's much more there, but I just wanted to highlight a few. And again, that can be found attached to the agenda of all the various uses. So we will need to talk as administration as to whether what uses we're going to use that for. Hopefully, we can find items within the current budget in order to reduce our $3.5 million deficit. Special education funding, the state also put an additional money through that formula. So for Shippensburg School District, we're going to get an additional $255,158 in special education funding. And then lastly, not the reform that we were hoping for, but they did give school districts a little bit of money towards our cyber charter school expenditures. So for Shippensburg Area School District, we'll get about $229,442 to help with the increase in our cyber charter school expenditures. So I wanted to provide you then with a summary and what that means to our current budget. So the increased amount in all those pockets of money that I shared with you, the total increase for Shippensburg School District is about $2.2 million. But keep in mind that we did budget some money for new state funding through our budget. We budgeted a little over $1 million. So we are getting an additional amount above our budget of about $1.2 million. Again, a caveat that as long as we use our Ready to Learn money for everything that's currently in our budget, if we would decide to use it for any new things that weren't in the budget, then it won't reduce the deficit as I've shown below. So when we approved the 24-25 budget, we were at a $3.5 million deficit. With the additional new money that we had not projected and put in the budget, that takes our revised deficit down to about $2.3 million. Additionally, through the state budget, they're also giving out mental health and safety grants through PCCD. Again, the state allotment was $100 million. Each school district was to receive $100,000, and then there was an adjustment based on our ADMs. For Shippensburg, our allocation is $167,986, and at a later date, Mrs. DeLong will be providing an update as to the allowable uses of that money and what the district plans to use that allotment for. In closing, there's still a lot to digest with the state budget, so PASBO is doing some webcast, which I have registered for, so breaking down and understanding like the Ready to Learn, the Cyber Charter School, that's the PDE 363, the additions to basic ed and special education funding, and then the state timeline. So I will be bringing updates back as I learn additional information through attending those webcasts. And that is all I have this evening.
Christy? Is it, when you say grant, that means it's not guaranteed every year. Next year may disappear.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, in lieu of genuine cyber charter reform, they put additional money in Ready to Learn. Am I right, Ms. Lentz?
I believe so, yeah.
Is that permanent?
What's that?
So cyber, is that permanent? They're going to give us that every year?
So in lieu of permanent change to the funding structure, they put additional monies in this Ready to Learn grant. Okay. To kind of balance that out.
I appreciate that.
Superintendent's report.
Thank you. Talking enrollment, we currently have 1,120 students at grades K through 3. I would put a caveat on this kindergarten numbers. They're still coming in, and I would say between the time this was printed and today, I would say there's about 40 to 50 additional kindergarten students, which is a little bit lower than we typically get. So we are expecting those numbers to creep up. Grades 4 and 5 we have 547 students on the roster, on our roster. Secondary school, middle school, 861. And the high school has 1,098 with 26 in different placements for a grand total of 3,652. Board, I would just put a big caveat on these numbers. we'll have a better understanding after third day attendance. So you could see some big swings between now and then. Reviewing the activity, any questions on the enrollment report? Okay. Activity account balances, senior high, $94,282. Middle school, $46,861.94. SACE has $10,506.45. James Byrd, $7,381.88. Nancy Grayson activity is $6,399.64. Any questions on those accounts? There's attached details of those for the high school and the middle school. I'd like to recognize donations received. The Shippensburg, Brenda Williams, the Frank P. Harmon American Legion Post 24, donation of socks or purchase of socks, underwear, coats, sneakers for students at the Nancy Grayson Elementary School, and to purchase 2 trees for the Grand Point Church to plant at Nancy Grayson Courtyard this fall. Total value is $500. American Legion Auxiliary Unit 223, tissue, socks, underwear, and hand soap, as well as school supplies for students at Nancy Grayson, approximate value $600. Jeremy Hahn, school supplies for use at Nancy Grayson, approximate value $180. JLG Industries, monetary donation to support our woodworking club, value of $500. JLG Industries, monetary donation to support James Byrd Race for Education at a value of $500. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. August. The consent agenda, item 4A, we have the approval of minutes. 4B is the finance report to include the bills of payments, paid construction bills. Item 3, the financial reports with those attachments. 4 is the tax report for June and July. Item 5 is the budget reports and all of those attachments. Item 4C is the 2024-2025 student handbooks. 4D is the 24-25 student athlete handbook. Item 4E, administration is recommending the approval of the field trip manual. 4F is the Elevate Physical Science curriculum with a cost of $15,638.44 for the 8th grade physical science courses. 4G is the Elevate Earth Science curriculum materials for the 7th grade Earth Science courses for a total of $15,638.44. 4H is the curriculum maps for the 24-25 school year. Administration recommends approval of the following curriculum maps for Band 6, Band 7, and 8th, Chorus 6th, 7th, and 8th, and Chorus 9th through 12, Intro to Piano Jazz Band 7th and 8th, and Music History and Appreciation, Music and Film, Music Theory, Orchestra 4, Orchestra 6, Orchestra 7, and 8, and those are attached. The curriculum map, item 4I is the curriculum map for forensic, experimental design, and environmental science. 4J is the agreement between the Franklin County Children and Youth Service and Shippensburg Area School District for transportation services. As mandated by the Educational Stability Act, to comply with Every Student Succeeds, the district shall provide transportation to facilitate children to foster care so they can remain in their home school. That agreement is attached. Item 4K is our professional staff, to include resignations, new appointments, transfers, promotions, and mentors. And I want to note that there are 2 of our individuals on the agenda, Bethany Massera and Abby Ordway. If you just wanted to feel inclined to stand up and wave, if you want to say something, feel free. So Bethany Macera, she is going to be our second grade teacher at Nancy Grayson Elementary School, and Abby Ordway is our language arts teacher at the high school.
Thank you very much, both of you, for coming tonight. I know it means a lot to put a name with a face, and we're so excited for you and everyone else to join the Greyhound family. And we'll see you tomorrow for a new teacher induction.
Is there a motion to approve items 4A through 4K? Actually, I want to say, is there any member that wishes to take any of these items separately?
I like 4C, just for discussion. Student handbooks.
Yes, so is there a motion to approve item 4A excluding C through 4K?
I make a motion to approve.
Motion made by Mr. Scott. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Dr. Goetz. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Is there a motion to approve item 4C?
I make a motion.
Motion by Mr. Scott, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Donovan. Discussion?
Yes, when I was going through all these reports, I was going through the handbook, and it talks about harassment and bullying and all that kind of stuff. When a student is bullied, is his parents notified or her parents notified that they have been bullied?
I think it's pretty specific to the incident, Mr. Scott. I mean, I can't say a blanket statement. I mean, if something's been reported to us,
yeah,
it's usually coming from the student or the parent, and then the administration would handle it. I don't know that they circle back, but.
So if a seventh grader came to the teacher and said, I've been bullied or been said there's something harassed, and we investigate, but we don't tell the parents of that child that we are investigating.
I can't speak to that 100% right now, Mr. Scott. I'd have to talk, direct. I wouldn't give you an accurate answer. A lot of times when things are reported, the administration would handle it with the perpetrator.
That's why I'm asking the question. I see a whole lot of information about the perpetrator, but the child, every child is not comfortable coming on their parents because they're concerned about being bullied when they go back to school. So I think it should be a requirement that the parent of the child that's being bullied be notified that the child is being bullied.
Yeah, I don't necessarily disagree, Mr. Scott. What I would say is, we would have to do the investigation to determine what's actually happened, because not often, but sometimes, there's a back and forth between students that we have to address, and I can't speak to every single incident.
I'm not asking for the action part, what the principal does or whatever. I'm just saying about the students that's being bullied. I think their parents should be notified that there has been a complaint or concern at the school, and then go back to the parents and advise them that their child has been put in that position.
Thank you. I'll make a note to the admin about that.
So I'd just like to thank our students who came to speak on a topic that they were passionate about when it comes to their education and their curriculum. I want to remind the board that policy 105 is our curriculum policy. And it's also been said that the music program is being run as a pilot under the delegation of responsibility of policy 105. With prior board approval, the superintendent may conduct pilot programs as deemed necessary to the continuing improvement of the instructional program, and the superintendent shall report periodically to the board of the status of each pilot program, along with its objectives, evaluative criteria, and costs. The board did not approve for a club to be made into a class, which ultimately is now into curriculum. There is no curriculum for this class, and for this to be a pilot program, the board also did not approve for it to be a pilot program. So I have concerns approving the handbook, which ultimately also affects policy. Every decision we make as a board should also directly align with policy. So
help me out. What part of the handbook deals with this music issue that we're talking about?
it's under the part, what up here? Page 30. 38.
While we're looking at it, I think it's important to note that, jazz band is an ensemble. So much of the curriculum is based around the pieces that the instructor chooses to have the group play. And given the timeline that I described earlier, this decision was late in coming and wasn't, the decision on what the music department configuration would look like took a fair amount of time. So it is more of a timing issue, though I understand, that there may be concerns about a curricular process.
So the concern here is just that we have listed the bands that are offered and we're not listing jazz band. I'm going to get a nod from the audience. Is that the concern?
Wrong. It lists concert band as one credit class, a full credit class, and it's not going to be. It's a half credit.
Ms. Luffy, are you able to speak to this at all, or?
Yeah, so when concert band moved to a skinny, it became a half credit.
Did administration know that this decision was going to be made when this was put on the discussion agenda at the last board meeting?
This was a conversation that actually Mr. Fike had with me and other people at the high school, that he would like to have concert band moved to be skinny. And so it was just oversight in him.
So based on a conversation you had with Mr. Fike?
Yeah, this was part of the scheduling process that he requested that it be a skinny.
So some late changes, we may need to circle back and.
That's what his schedule is.
Okay. Yeah, but as far as the handbook goes, we may have to do a revision. Okay.
So just help me out on the process with that. So if we were to approve this as it is, then we would need to approve an updated version next board meeting? Like what, I mean.
Right, we want to make sure it.
Or should we just
reflects.
wait till next board meeting to make sure that we have these things corrected?
Well, I'd be a little bit nervous that the high school would not have an approved handbook for the start of school.
Same. Yeah, I mean, all right. So we could sort of approve it with the caveat that, like, hey, there's an error that needs to be corrected here in the.
And we can certainly not run, jazz band as a class if there's curricular issues for it, and just simply run it as, a 30-minute club once a week.
So while we're on that subject, if I just ask a question there. So presently, so it had been a club, and the proposal is to make, I guess it's happening, right? The class is out there to have this skinny half-credit class that is jazz, but in addition to that, continue the jazz club. So a student who wants to participate in jazz band can either take the skinny, which is to say that they would be in a class every day for a semester, or they could just do the club.
Right, it's expanding the options they would have to participate in some form with jazz band.
And presumably those students who would opt into the class could then be part of the club in the other semester, right? So they're sort of continuing with the.
I think at some point they run concurrently, because it's a skinny.
Well,
so
right,
they
but
could
I'm
go
just
to
saying in
jazz
the other
and then-
semester, because it's not going to be offered
Right.
both semesters, right? It would just be offered at one semester.
Right, theoretically, they could go to jazz band twice in that time period and then still continue on with the club.
I mean, if this really is an accurate reflection of like what's being proposed, I get that there's other concerns about, teachers sort of going back and forth. But beyond that, as far as like offering opportunities to students, this seems like we're offering far more rather than reducing.
Right. When the administration looked at how to make the most efficient use of our music teachers, we came through a couple iterations to make that happen, to allow some additional opportunities by looking for efficiencies.
Yeah.
Can I clarify from the discussion you just had with Dr. Goetz? I should know this. A skinny is just one semester? Right. And it's not year long, it's just one semester?
So you have 9-week skinnies, is that correct? And then we have 18-week skinnies.
Okay.
And year-long skinnies.
Okay.
There's a lot of skinnies.
So skinnies can be short, medium, or tall?
Correct.
Okay. And could a student then take the jazz band class year long? Or is it only offered second?
We're going to offer jazz band once
during the
as
year.
a class, and then continue to staff it with another music teacher to run jazz band club.
So the club would run year long?
Correct.
As it has been?
So I put a little caveat on that. I think, is there any flexibility you have if a club's not filling, you maybe change directions, or?
So clubs typically run based upon like when a teacher is available. So
Okay.
there's flexibility, yes.
Okay.
Okay, so
It's a year long for the club.
Year long for the club, which is what it has been in the past? So in essence, I just want to make sure I'm getting this right. We're doing more jazz band this year than we were last year.
If this, granted process-wise and curriculum-wise, the timing, didn't allow for that, I would just reiterate, it's an ensemble, which is driven by the pieces that the teacher chooses, and the skills within that, to what standards they choose to teach through the pieces they're putting in front of kids. But it is definitely another opportunity. And if the board is not comfortable with not having set curriculum for a pilot, we can certainly pull that out and just go with the year-long club. To my understanding, I understand the concerns, but given how we were working to provide more at every level with limited resources, the fact that we have the opportunity to do both, I think, is encouraging. And what we've heard a lot of people talk about, the power of music, in their lives. And this is, along with orchestra, is potentially 2 additional, opportunities, which goes back to that efficiency model that we talked about.
Okay.
Or I talked about.
So that was a long response. So is it more jazz than last year?
If the handbook is approved with that course, then yes.
Yes. Okay. One more thing. The Tetris game that we have to play with our specials, I recognize, is very, very complicated across the district. I'm not certain that I understand all of it, but I know in your communication with us, you have made the point that the way we're using the music teachers has been applauded and gives more opportunities at the elementary school level, and the elementary school principals are looking forward to the new arrangement this year. Can you talk more about that?
Sure. So working with the elementary principals, we were able to look at the resources that we had. The board may remember that an art teacher, a person with an art certificate was reassigned to the elementary levels. And I probably should back up. The impetus for this is that we've added 4 additional teachers at the elementary level over the last 2 years. For every elementary teacher that we add, we have to put them into a specials rotation. Every teacher needs a prep. Those students deserve to have their specials like everybody else. So as you expand the core teachers, you have a challenge to provide specials for those additional folks. And I can speak to it that it's not like we were already struggling to do specials the way we were, and we were missing out on opportunities such as common planning time, having a consistent schedule for teachers, to have their special in the same day. There's a number of advantages to us putting additional resources that are there. The thing about schedule building, to your point, is you can't hire like a 0.67 teacher. So moving resources there created a little bit of extra capacity that allowed us to incorporate additional, specials times in a particular building, to bring those kids back for more potentially music that would allow them to go deeper into the curriculum that's already on board. So the principals, another side of this is staffing 4 elementary buildings. G Blues is great, but it's a challenge to staff a one deep building, with specials. So it allowed us to provide more equity there, and get them, the specials and support that they needed there. So a lot of wins, a lot of work, a lot of brain, puzzling this out to make it work. And again, it's about looking at efficiencies with the resources we have. So the art, and you need to add across all the specials. So looking at the art program, we had a certificate available in a program that we were able to reallocate. So we were able to move an art teacher down to the elementary level. I did come to the board with an additional PE teacher to add to the rotation. That was based on the decision that our kids were not getting very much health instruction throughout the year. So I prioritized that to the board to allow us to provide additional PE. That's why that hire was made, and we readjusted internally, the other 2 positions to allow that to happen. And again, because of the tightness of our special schedule, some of our special needs classes were not in a good place with getting those students dedicated specials time. So at the end of the day, there are a ton of wins out of this configuration at the elementary level, outside of what I just described as well. There's a lot of wins there. All of that was at the cost of 30 minutes of jazz band club, which we were able to fulfill, and we had to reconfigure some schedules. It should be noted that within our collective bargaining agreement with the association, there is a pecking order of who gets what assignment, so we had to work within that as well to determine who would be going where. This was months of work and discussions to get us to this point. And at the end of the day, for the list of things that we get, and technically not really a loss potentially at the high school, I'm feeling like we've done due diligence to make sure that we're addressing music at every level.
And you may have spoken about this, but I'm trying to remember from your update that you sent to the board on Friday. There's also something about that specials will be more consistently scheduled and not kind of moving to different times on different days.
I was not necessarily aware of this, but so typically, in an elementary schedule, you would have English, LEA, you might have math, and then, 5th period, you go to specials, and it just rotates through. Because of the strain on our system, some of our teachers were going twice a week without having a special, which is not good for them. It's a lack of planning time, kind of burns them out too. But now with these additional resources, they can have the same special time mostly across the week, which for younger kids, well, anyone thrives on consistency and a consistent schedule, which is another win in my book, is being able to have that consistent elementary schedule for a teacher, and reducing the number of non-special days that they have, where they may only get 30 minutes in the morning, and that 30 minutes might be taken up by a meeting. So you have teachers grinding through an entire day, which is difficult to sustain.
With no break, because there's no special.
I mean, consider lunch a break. We do give them a lunch.
Okay.
So
I'm seeing from some nods from a respected elementary school teacher in the audience. Thank you for that clarification on specifically the elementary benefits to this configuration.
I have a question. Did we eliminate a music teacher's position?
We did not, sir.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I was not around to eliminate
So
a
we
music
went-
position.
I think from the email that Mrs. Deibler had sent, we had gone from 9 to 7.5.
7.
Over the years.
So
do we need to look at maybe possibly hiring one?
I mean, we certainly can put it on the list, Jim. We can.
I mean, I don't know. I'm just asking.
Yeah, the other part was attempting to balance the $3.5 million deficit we had at the time, so.
I understand we got a deficit, and we're always going to have a deficit because our school board and state put mandates on us. But we're here for the kids, and if we went from 9 to 7, maybe we shouldn't have went as far. Maybe we went to 8.
I can't speak to that, Mr. Scott. I wasn't here.
Can you look at that? Give us a proposal on that possibility?
We would have to go through a process, but I mean, it's possible. I mean, the board has the power to do that.
Takes
I
a
think it would
motion
be.
and a second, Mr. Scott.
Huh?
It takes a motion and a second,
Now or later?
preferably maybe later.
I make a motion that we look into the possibility of hiring another music teacher to support them.
I'll second.
But I don't understand enough to get really involved in it, but I just know we went from one, we didn't have this concern when we had 9 from my understanding. Now we cut it, now we got this concern. So that's my motion. I make a motion.
So I think it would be most appropriate to make it during board comments after we get through the handbook.
That's why I asked you when,
Yes.
now or later.
Yeah, later.
Okay.
So.
Wait, can I ask another question? I know.
Sure.
I'll wait till we get to the motion. It's fine.
I think we're still on 4C.
Yeah, we are still on 4C. So I just want to close. I'm okay with all of the other handbooks, but for me, policy 105, 237, and board policy 000 with the board, interpreting the policy. I feel like if we start swaying from what policy says and start putting it in handbook without aligning with policy, it's heading down a slippery slope. So.
Can I make a recommendation that we approve the other handbooks and not, the other ones don't seem to be an issue.
Sorry, go ahead.
That's just my recommendation.
I'm really puzzled by your concern there, Ms. Everly. I mean, the policy 105 with curriculum, it talks, I don't know, that's a strange reading to suggest that anytime something changes that it has to be approved by the board. That's certainly not our practice with curriculum. And I think your reading of 237, policy 237 is just wrong. My reading of policy 237, and if somebody wants to put it on the board so we could all look at it together, if that's really a concern, it pretty clearly states, it says the board authorizes, building principals in consultation with the superintendent and in compliance with board policy, administrative regulations and rules are authorized to determine the extent of the use of electronic devices within their buildings and programs on district property and or while students are attending school-sponsored activities. So the way I am reading this policy is to say the board has not made a specific prohibition against electronic devices. However, it is up to the principals to decide how those electronic devices will be used in their buildings. And thus, by approving the handbook, we are okaying the principal's discretion in how those electronic devices should be used.
But teachers also have authorities within their classrooms to implement the handbook how they see fit. We've heard that only 27% of the high school staff have asked to have some sort of restriction on the cell phones. I mean, and then you talk about like, now you're literally, what the policy says is what is an electronic device. It goes down to AirPods, to smartphones, iPods, tablets. I mean, so you're literally using the policy and the handbook as a la carte items, in my opinion. And then also when you look down here, I mean, almost half of our school district have 504s and IEPs. So it also says that they can have accommodations made to those. So currently, we're getting ready to hire a full-time one. We don't have an assistant, so now families that have IEPs 504s are going to overwhelm an already overwhelmed department to get those accommodations because, you know, the disagreements with policies, or if parents feel pretty strongly about their child, especially when we just talked about not having a full-time school resource officer and safety being a major concern.
So if I may, it sounds to me like your real concern is not the policy concern, but the real concern is that you think, you just don't like this idea that students should not be able to have their cell phones in classrooms.
Wrong. Every decision we make comes down to policy.
Right, but I mean, I don't know how you read this policy and say that a principal can't decide how electronic devices are going to be used.
She can, and she will, but teachers are also independent beings with different rules in their classroom. So if we want to talk about consistency, and each teacher also having, you know, they can implement, you know, a phone policy in their classrooms as, you know, they do and can. So who's to say that one teacher is going to allow a phone versus another teacher who won't? And again, students being conflicted of, can I have it here because this teacher allows me, but this teacher doesn't? Or this teacher allows me to listen to music when all of my coursework is done. So we want to talk about consistency. It is about consistency. I would much rather our students be taught some critical thinking, common sense, and some etiquette, because the profile of a grad, those are all attributes of profile of a graduate. They're getting ready to graduate, like they're getting ready to go to college. They need to know when to put their phones away and when to pay attention. They're young adults. Like they should be learning that responsibility.
Right. So I'm hearing you say that you oppose a prohibition on cell phones in the classroom.
It comes down to policy. It does not align with profile of a graduate of what we're trying to teach our children upon graduation. If our kids don't know to put their phones down or to be responsible with it when they're graduating, and what are we doing?
Well, and the back and forth probably isn't helpful. I'll just say that I'm 100% in support of a prohibition against cell phone use in the high school. I think that the rules laid out in the handbook are fine. As I read it, they are perfectly consistent with policy as it exists, and I'm excited, actually, about this change.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, I think there's too much gray area here. There's obviously some back and forth. So I'll go ahead and make a motion here to table the high school handbook until this gets ran through policy and get it figured out. I'm okay with the middle school, G Blues, and elementary going through, but I want to take the high school handbook separately.
Can I ask a question, if this is appropriate, please? How do we start school next Wednesday not having a high school handbook?
I agree.
That seems like a...
It's kind of uncharted water.
Yeah, it seems to me like controlled chaos is what we're hoping for.
I believe we'd probably just defer to last year's handbook.
I wonder if I understand Mr. Donovan's desire to sort of see this done right. I wonder if instead of a table, he would consider the motion to be that we come back, approve the handbook, but come back to it at a future meeting and produce some addendums or additions so that we can move on with the handbook as it currently is. And then if we have a desire to change parts of it in future meetings, we do that. That way we can start the school year with appropriate policies and procedures in place.
Or strike the verbiage in question.
Which is?
Yeah, I mean, we would need to look at the middle school then, because it's the same verbiage. And
Yeah.
It was approved last year at the middle school.
We do this every year, right? The handbook, or every so many years?
Every year.
Every year.
We get this straight. Can't we use the last one we used last year?
I mean, we typically don't do wholesale changes.
Yeah.
I mean, there's tweaks, we update it. I mean, it was sent to everybody with the changes that were there. I mean,
this cell phone thing is going to be kind of important. And I think if I'm in the high school and it's the beginning of the year, to start off with one set of rules and then to transition a couple of weeks later, that just seems like a disaster. I don't understand the issue. I don't understand. If you're opposed to the prohibition, then that's one thing. But I don't see how there's no inconsistency that I'm seeing between what's in the handbook and what's in policy. If you're opposed to the prohibition, then so be it. But
Well, that's why we got 9 votes. Each one of us have his own perspective, and we vote on it. So going back and forth about, I believe this or that, each one have one vote, and let's get it out of the way.
But we know that during the presentation tonight, we saw that the middle school, this basically where this all came from, is it's almost like copied and pasted from the middle school to put it in the high school handbook. So does that mean that we operated a school year that we were out of policy and that we didn't agree with? I don't understand that. Because we passed this last year, we went through the whole school year, and we're getting ready to pass the same handbook again tonight at the middle school with the same thing in it, but we're only talking about the high school, which this doesn't make sense to me.
Have a special meeting? I like middle school and high school both should be on the same page, as far as I'm concerned. So hold them both back.
I would just recommend if we're not, just one last comment, if we're not going to approve the high school one, to Mr. Kressler's point, I think we would probably need to do the same process with the middle school, since the language is identical.
Can we get this fixed and have a special meeting before school starts?
Our advertising deadlines are pretty tight unless we go with maybe a bigger newspaper, but we're about a week to get.
Policy.
My fellow board member says there is, so I support that.
So how long did we know that this cell phone thing was coming? Because we started having talks about it with in different meetings and committee meetings and everything else months ago, and now here we are 9 days before school, and we're questioning if we are following policy, which we already have one handbook approved in the past. This makes no sense to me at all, and now we look completely unorganized. We look unprepared, in my opinion.
Yeah,
I can say these questions were asked behind closed doors to try to get this remedied prior to it being put out there in front of the public.
If I recall, this was on the discussion agenda over a month or whenever our last meeting was in July. And it was pointed out by the superintendent that this policy was in the handbook. So I think we've known about it for a long time. I think we just need an up or down vote on the handbooks, and if the votes are there, the votes are there.
Yeah. Go with. You make, what table is motion?
But we've got to do some Robert's Rules of Order.
We've got a motion on the table. I mean, I would call the question.
All right, Christie, roll call, please.
So can we clarify what the question is?
Yeah.
The question is to approve item 4C.
Okay, did Mr. Donovan have?
He didn't get his, there was.
Didn't get a second.
There wasn't a second on that.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
Mr. Jim Bard,
No.
Mr. Mike Carey,
No.
Mr. Levi Kressler,
Yes.
Dr. Nathan Goetz,
Yes.
Dr. Michael Lyman,
Yes.
Mr. Fred Scott.
What am I voting for?
A yes vote is to approve the student handbooks as stated in item
No.
4C.
Mr. Darren Donovan,
No.
Mrs. Steph Eberly.
No.
Motion failed.
That was the students clapping.
Item 4D, the 24-25 Student Athlete Handbook. Administration recommends approval of the attached 24-25 Student Handbook. Is there a motion? Oh, wait, I'm sorry. I forgot where we were here. So item personnel, the last of the item 4L, Personnel Administration. Administration recommends approval of the following resignation. Christy Lentz, the Chief Financial Officer at Shippensburg Area School District, effective approximately through September 23rd, 2024. And administration recommends approval of the following promotion. Mr. Jeremy Eastman, Director of Student Services at the Shippensburg Area School District, at a salary of $99,000, effective August 13th, 2024. Is there a motion to approve item 5 or 4L?
I make a motion to approve.
Motion made by Mr. Scott, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Donovan. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? I do just want to thank our all-star HR team for all their hard work and efforts ensuring that we are fully staffed. The brunt of our agenda tonight is personnel, so just thank you to Nicole and her team.
Yeah, I would just reiterate that as well. It's been a very fast and furious couple of months.
For sure. 5A, the PIAA resolution. Administration recommends approval of the attached resolution to allow the PIAA to create separate playoffs for boundary and non-boundary schools in postseason games. Is there a motion to approve item 5A?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Donovan.
Second.
Second by Mr. Carey. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Item 5B, the Learning A through Z materials. Administration recommends approving materials from A to Z Learning for Foundations, a tool providing explicit science and reading resources for grades 4 through 5, and that curriculum budget will be utilized for these costs of $964. Is there a motion to approve item 5B?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Donovan, second.
Second, Fred Scott.
By Mr. Scott. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? 5C, the Partnership for Career Development. Administration recommends continuing our membership with the Partnership for Career Development. The cost of $3,850 will come from the curriculum budget. The membership provides multiple opportunities for career exploration and development for our high school students. Is there a motion to approve item 5C?
Move to approve.
Motion by Mr. Bard, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Carey. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? 5D, the letters volumes 1 and 2. Administration recommends approval to purchase letters volumes 1 and 2 to be utilized for professional development for 2nd and 4th grade teachers at a cost of $19,950. and that will come from the curriculum budget. Is there a motion to approve item 5D?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Carey, second
Second.
by Mr. Bard. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? 5E, the scholastic quote for James Byrd. Administration recommends approval of the attached quote for the ELA curriculum resource for the James Byrd third grade classes in lieu of replacing the ARC Read Aloud books. Is there a motion to approve item 5E?
Fred Scott, make a motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Scott, second.
Second.
Second by Dr. Lyman. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? 5F is the quote for everyday speech. Administration recommends approval of everyday speech to provide social skills and language resources for students who are experiencing social challenges and/or language delays. The costs are included in the pre-approved 24-25 student services budget. Is there a motion to approve item 5F?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Donovan, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Bard. Discussion?
Yes. Is this position replacing the two positions we cut out of ESL, or what was it, ESSERs? Are these,
These are resources, Mr. Scott.
are they replacing the ones we took from ESSERs?
It's curriculum, it's not
Curriculum,
a position.
Mr. Scott.
Okay.
Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? 5G, the additional iReady licenses. Administration recommends approval to purchase additional iReady licenses and materials totaling $1,376.25 to supplement math and ELA instruction in grades K through 8. The curriculum budget will pay for these items. Is there a motion to approve item 5G?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Donovan, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Carey. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? 5H is the Cengage Learning Quote. Administration recommends approval to purchase English language development materials from Cengage Learning totaling $11,220 for grades K through 12. The funds will come from the ELL budget. Is there a motion to approve item 5H?
So moved.
Motion by Dr. Lineman, second.
Fred Scott seconds.
Second by Mr. Scott. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? 5I is the Acadience contract. Administration recommends approval of the renewal contract with Acadience at a cost of $10,416, which will be paid for out of the curriculum budget. The screener tool is utilized by K through 6 English and math teachers to provide targeted instruction to students. Is there a motion to approve item 5I?
Fred Scott, make a motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Scott, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Donovan. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? 5J is the addendum to News Story IDP agreement for the extended school year. News Story operates a private licensed school in Carlisle and provides intensive academic and behavioral interventions for special education students. The proposed extended school year agreement is for 8 students who are currently enrolled, and the cost per student for the ESY program is $2,610. It is the recommendation of the administration that the board approves this agreement with News Story. Is there a motion to approve item 5J?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Carey, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Bard. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? 5K, the agreement with the CAIU English Language Development and the English as Second Language Services. Administration recommends retro approval of the agreement with the Capital Area Intermediate Unit for English Language Development and English as Second Language for the 24-25 school year. The CAIU agrees to accept $800 per day in fulfillment of the total cost. Will include 7.5 administrative fee on top of the directive services. Is there a motion to approve item 5K?
So moved.
Motion by Dr. Lyman, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Donovan. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? 5L is the MOU between Shippensburg University Head Start and the Shippensburg Area School District. Administration requests approval of a MOU between the Shippensburg University Head Start and the school district effective August 24th through July 2025. Is there a motion to approve item 5L?
Fred Scott, make a motion to approve.
Motion made by Mr. Scott, second.
Second.
Second by Dr. Lyman. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? 5M is the petition for rule for the judicial sale. The Tax Claim Bureau of Franklin County has recommended tax parcel number 21013-056-0069 to be placed on their upcoming judicial sale docket to hopefully be sold and once again start generating tax revenue on this parcel. Is there a motion to approve item 5M?
Move to approve.
Motion made by Mr. Bard, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Donovan. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? 5N is the Shippensburg furniture quote for school specialty. Administration recommends retroactive approval to purchase classroom furniture from school specialty for the following new and/or updated classrooms: third grade at James Byrd, life skills at James Byrd, learning support at James Byrd, second grade at Nancy Grayson, the autistic support at Nancy Grayson, the library OT STEM at Nancy Grayson. The total for the furniture at James Byrd is $19,829, and the total for Nancy Grayson is $29,284, for the grand total of $49,114. Is there a motion to approve item 5N?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Donovan, second.
Fred Scott seconds.
Second by Mr. Scott. Discussion?
Yeah, one question about that I'd ask about, does anybody look into the state and federal surplus? That is such a great avenue to pick up furniture and other items for districts and other governmental agencies. It's a lot cheaper than buying new.
So we're looking into it, Mr. Carey, for future purchase.
Thank you.
Any additional questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? 5O is the PSBA membership renewal. Administration recommends retro approval for the Shippensburg School District to renew our membership with the Pennsylvania School Board Association for a cost of $18,570.10. This has already been budgeted for the 24-25 board services budget. Is there a motion to approve item 5O?
Move to approve.
Motion by Mr. Bard, second.
Fred Scott seconds.
Second by Mr. Scott. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? 5P is the Shippensburg School District Athletic Stadium change order, the scoreboard custom color. Administration recommends approval of the attached change order for the amount of $1,218. This approval is required to get the scoreboard in the Shippensburg Area School District color and is considered a custom color, which is not included in the original proposal. Is there a motion to approve item 5P?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Carey, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Donovan. Discussion?
Yeah, Mr. All, can you explain to him the reason that that's on there?
Yes, Mr. Bard. So our other scoreboards in the area are from a different company. So the color match wasn't exact. In order to make all of our scoreboards look the same, we need to go with a custom color upgrade. And I believe we're waiting on this approval to be able to order the scoreboard.
That's fine. I wanted the public to know why we were spending that. It's just a matter of having a color difference. I mean, to me, it don't matter whether it's a color, I understand it's powder coat versus paint. It's going to be a color change. But I'm fine with it. That's fine. I just wanted the explanation.
Why wasn't this brought up in the original presentation. Like, this just seems like an extra add-on cost that doesn't seem,
Well, we weren't sure what, if you recall, Mr. Donovan, we weren't sure which scoreboard we were going with. So when the board decided to go with OES, this kicked in. And so, my understanding is that we're doing this one time, and so having all of our scoreboards look the same is aesthetically better than it not looking the same.
Any additional comments, questions?
We talking about $1,200?
Yeah.
Any additional comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? 5Q is the new stadium sound system proposal, ADA option. Administration recommends approval of the ADA compliant hearing assistance option. This cost to add this option, it would be $8,438. Is there a motion to approve item 5Q?
Move to approve.
Motion by Mr. Bard, second.
Gary has second.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Carey. Second by Mr. Carey. Discussion?
I'm going to ask a Jim Bard question here just to clarify again. This allows people who can't hear to be able to still be at football games and whatnot, and
Right, for the hearing impaired,
Yeah.
it's a way to access the sounds that are happening over the PA system.
Thank you.
And it's a requirement by code.
Right.
All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Item 5R is the part-time personal care assistant. Administration recommends the addition of a part-time personal care assistant. The recommendation for this position is the result of a student who recently registered in the district with the level of service included in their IEP. Is there a motion to approve item 5R?
so moved.
Motion by Mr. Donovan, second.
Second.
Discussion. Second by Mr. Scott. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? 5S is the new position, Assistant Business Administrator. Per the request of board members, a motion is put forth to approve the creation of the position of Assistant Business Administrator. The approximate cost for this position is estimated to be $150,959. Is there a motion to approve item 5S?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Donovan, second. There is no second, motion dies. Discussion agenda, 6A, the donation. So I'm going to read down through these. If you just have a question, please feel free to stop and ask or send administration an email. Item 6A is the donation of a Dodge Caravan to the school district, estimated at $3,000. 6B is policies for the first reading. To continue to 6C, 6D is the high school Sunday softball field use for Sunday, September 22nd for a championship softball game. 6E is an agreement with the Central Penn Education Associates. 6F is the agreement for Stephanie Metz Beach Services for the 24-25 school year. 6G is the agreement with Von Drox Beach Services. 6H, the CM Regent agreement. 6I is the iReady digital licenses. 6J is the Smart Futures District license. 6K is the UFLI manuals. 6L is the Inspire Life Science curriculum for 6th grade, and the cost of that is $48,729 to come from the curriculum budget. 6M is the amendment to the agenda for the benchmark decodables, and that cost is the $4,708.07, I think it was.
47,807.
Yeah, okay.
45.
6N is the curriculum maps. 6O is the curriculum maps for the Ceramics 1 and Ceramic 2. 6P is the note flight software for the music department at a cost of $649 to come from the curriculum budget. 6Q is the Director of Maintenance and Operations. Administration is recommending filling the Director of Operations position, which was previously dissolved, and this position is not included in the 24-25 budget. The job description was approved by the board on December 4th, 2023, and that is attached.
If I can just stop you there for a second. Mr. August, would you mind just sort of providing briefly the rationale? Probably the next couple of items are related to that too.
Sure. So big picture, we've struggled in custodian and maintenance with staff through an attempt to save efficiencies. We did not fill the director position, added additional custodians and a maintenance position, created a head of custodians position. As we, it took so long in order to get our head of custodial job description, it became apparent that the current configuration is not working efficiently and not solving our problems, particularly with all the construction going on. The director of maintenance and operations is a needed position that we've considered to have as a district fulfilled spot. It's really an attempt to, and I say this acknowledging the hard work of all of our custodians and maintenance folks, to really solve a root cause problem of having the leadership and direction and enough boots on the ground to get our buildings clean and maintain them at the level. And despite Mrs. DeLong's best effort, we're finding that that position is best filled by someone with the technical knowledge to be able to administer these two departments.
Thank you.
6R is the revised job description for the head of custodial services. Administration recommends approval to the revisions made to the job description for the head of custodial services position, and that is attached. 6S is the MOU between the school district and the SAESA, the head of custodial services pay level. 6T is the revised job description for the district events staff, and that's what we were discussing in the safety and security meeting. That was one of the recommendations to move forward. 6U is the district event staff pay. Administration recommends approval of establishing a $25 per hour for the district event staff. 6V is the revised job description for the baker/assistant cook, and that is also attached. 6W is the part-time LPN position. 6X is the part-time health room assistant position. 6Y is the MOU for the evacuation host facility. The superintendent recommends approval of the following MOU between the school district and the university to establish shelter site locations and terms of use in the event of an evacuation for students and staff of the Shippensburg School District. 6Z is the financial security and O&M agreement for the high school, middle school. Administration recommends approval of the attached financial security and the O&M agreement. 6AA is the builder's risk assurance for the stadium. 6AB is the change order for the administration building parking lot. And that's a retro approval to the existing parking lot, and that cost was $11,265. 6AC is the approval to bid the high school, middle school parent loop projects. The administration recommends granting approval to solicit bids for the high school, middle school, and parent loop projects. And that is it for the discussion items. Now moving on to the citizens' comments regarding non-agenda items. So please identify yourself by name and address all comments to the board as a whole, and make sure they are in the form of a statement. Questions will be taken under advisement. Responses to questions will be offered after due deliberation and will be provided to the superintendent at the direction of the board within a few days of the meeting. You'll be allowed 3 minutes for your comments. Nicole Albright.
Good evening. My name is Nicole Albright, resident of Southampton Township, Franklin County. My son is entering 7th grade and is very invested in the music program in Shippensburg. I'm also a music educator at a neighboring school district. I was sitting at home and listening to the school board meeting, and I just have a couple clarifying comments. Having a strong elementary curriculum in the elementary is essential. Having a strong facility to teach music is an amazing thing for our district and students, and it's very appreciated. But there's a big picture that I hope you are all considering. You're potentially cutting the legs out from under the music department by leaving it understaffed and pulling secondary music teachers to cover classes in your elementary buildings. We as a community will begin to notice that throughout our district as enrollments fall at the secondary level. You will then notice that your top recruitment source, the high school music ensembles, will not draw interest from students in the elementary instrumental and vocal music. I would also like to point out that jazz band is an ensemble that requires a certain instrumentation. It was discussed a couple times tonight about music selections, but you also have to consider the people that are playing the instruments in those ensembles. Having a jazz band be both a class and a club could potentially cut enrollments in half, not allowing correct instrumentation or numbers to run the class or club. It may sound like a win on paper to have a club and a class, but if you're only going to allow students to take one or the other, it may not be a good solution, because you may have 5 kids that are able to take a club, 10 kids that are able to take the class. So what I'm really asking is that you consider to speak with your full music department to find a solution so that you can allow that your secondary ensembles to thrive and to continue to pull the elementary students into their music ensembles so that we continue to have a strong music department for my son to join when he gets to the high school. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So before we get into board comments, there's something that I failed to mention when we started our meeting, is that the board did meet in executive session regarding personnel and real estate matters for the committee of the whole meeting. Starting with board comments, Dr. Lineman.
Do I really have to go first?
Sorry.
Can I just clarify, we just failed to approve student handbooks for the whole district, is that correct?
That is correct.
That feels super wrong to me, and frankly irresponsible. And I would like to make a motion that I'm willing to compromise though, so I would like to discuss or have some conversations about how we can get these handbooks approved so that we can start the school year right. If that means, if the cell phone language is the only thing holding people up, then maybe we just pull that out for future. But again, that's pretty wonky to start the school year with one cell phone policy and then change it after we get around to changing it. That seems pretty poor also. But I understand if we can't get to an agreement. I think I would like to make a motion that we approve all the handbooks, and maybe, as Ms. Eberly suggested, strike the cell phone language as a compromise so that we can start the school year with handbooks, but then we need to revisit the cell phone policy at our next board meeting. But I'm open to discussion. I would love to hear what other board members, why there were no votes. Again, we need to know why people voted no, and if you don't say things in meetings, we don't know why you voted no. So if I could hear from my fellow board members about why they voted against the policy and why we voted to not approve all of the handbooks for the whole district, please share it now.
So I'll second that so we can have discussion.
So a motion was made by Dr. Lyman to approve the handbooks with some stricken verbiage, and second by Mr. Kressler. Discussion.
What are we voting on?
So there was a motion.
I heard that. But what is the motion?
That's what we're going, I guess, to
We're just having discussion with it now.
to maybe amend that motion.
Originally, I was just going to do the high school, keeping that out. I was okay with the middle school, elementary, and G Blues, but then I'm informed that middle school and high school are kind of combined.
Mirror each other.
Yeah. And it's not that I'm opposed, I just want them to match, like Mrs. Eberly is stating.
Everybody voted, yeah.
We have plenty of time to get that done before school starts, in my opinion.
Not sure we have another board meeting before school starts.
We have a special meeting, get it done.
It's just a little tricky with advertising, and the days that they advertise and the days that you can put it out. So it is a little tricky.
Ironically enough, I believe the first day for like first-year teachers is tomorrow, I think. And every teacher is coming back to the school on Friday for an in-service day. And, you know, as you just said with advertising, like there's a real likelihood that we could welcome all of our employees back and all of our teachers back and not have one handbook approved.
I think the earliest, in talking with Mrs. Lentz, we could do it is if we advertise tomorrow, we could do it Monday.
And school starts on
that Wednesday, I believe.
Wednesday.
For me, it's the policy and the handbook. The policy, if something changes within the school year, some instance that we need to change, we can't change it after we pass this policy? Or we can't, this handbook, we can't make any changes during the school year? Is that what you're telling me?
No, we can change it, but it's weird to start a school year with one rule and then change the rule halfway through the school year.
What difference if an incident comes up and we change it? Is that going to be weird too? That we won't do it? I don't see where the relevancy of first day of school, we got to do this. We can fall back to last year's till we get it straight.
And Mr. Scott, I'd have to check with our solicitor on what to do in this situation. I'm not familiar out of the gate what it means to start without an approved handbook. Okay, so I need to make sure to get that answer.
I'm sort of like Donovan. I want the handbook and the policy to be the same.
So can we maybe address at least the elementary school? So let's get the elementary school squared away. So maybe a motion to, for one, approve the G Blues and the elementaries, and then maybe a second motion to address.
So everything but the middle school and the high school.
For now, and then that would maybe be a second motion to iron out.
I am willing to amend my motion to just be the elementary, intermediate, and intermediate schools.
I can go along there.
I'll second that.
Yeah.
So a motion was made by Dr. Lyman to approve all of the handbooks except the high school and middle school, and second by Mr. Kressler. Any discussion on that?
How are we benefiting by having some approved and some not, I guess?
Well, I think a second motion to iron out the verbiage in the middle school, high school, to see if we can get that figured out tonight.
Yeah, our work's not done.
Any additional discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Now the high school, middle school.
So I'm willing to work this however we need to. If there is an alternative way that people feel that the policy should read, the cell phone policy, and we could get that in approved tonight and in the handbook, that's another way to do this. But I don't know what people's problems with the cell phone policy are, other than an alleged conflict with board policy.
Right, so if I can just add to that, if there is no opposition to the handbook as it's written, then could someone offer a language adjustment to policy 237 that would make them then comfortable with a consistency? Because again, as I'm reading this, there is no inconsistency. Administration does not believe there's an inconsistency. So help us see where the language could be improved so that you are then also comfortable with there not being an inconsistency.
Dr. Goetz, the board doesn't write policy. We approve policy. I mean, policies come to us pretty much written, and we make minor tweaks.
Well, that's what you're asking for, I think, is a minor.
I think it's easier to correct maybe what's in the handbook, because when I keep using the word handbook and policy as if they are the same thing. They are not the same thing.
So I guess I'm still lost as to, I haven't heard anyone say what needs to change about the policy that semantics are getting in the way here. I haven't heard anyone say explicitly what is wrong with the language in the middle school and high school handbooks about cell phone use.
The specifics of it.
So that's not very specific.
No, I'm saying, yeah, you want like a specific.
Yeah. Because
all I know is we had the head of our curriculum and our principal for the high school come in here and give the facts as to why we shouldn't have them in here in the school. To me, that's the school district. Why are we going to separate high school from the middle school, from the elementary schools? I mean, either we do or we don't with this policy going into the new year. It isn't, let's pick two and leave one go and do, I mean, should be across the board policy.
So, Mr. Carey, in other words, you would be in favor of the policy as it is now written, as long as it applied to all the schools in the district?
That would be the preference, yes, thank you.
Just to clarify, Mr. Carey, there's very cell phone, with younger kids, they don't own the devices. So it's really kind of a non-issue at those levels.
But if that's what gets it passed, I'm willing to go with it.
Oh, but why is the policy, is policy different? And why is it?
We can certainly put it in. I just wanted to just point out that there's like very little cell phone use it's not really a problem at the elementary level that would need to be addressed, but whatever the board's will is,
Well,
that's
if you
more
start them at
palatable.
the elementary, it's the same all the way up through, then they know what the expectations are if we're talking about being unified.
Whatever gets you on board.
Carey on that.
Didn't we just approve the elementary handbooks as is?
Yeah.
We did.
Yeah.
I'm really puzzled. So you're saying that you would be okay with it if there was also a cell phone prohibition for the elementary schools? The reason you're not okay with it is because it's not explicitly stated in the elementary school handbooks?
Well, I'm just curious why it isn't a district-wide policy to say it's not going to be accessible.
Well, I mean, help me out if I'm wrong, but I think that what we're doing right now, or what was proposed, was making a change to the high school handbook that reflected what the middle school handbook already looked like. So now, what administration's proposal was to make middle school and high school handbooks consistent in regards to the cell phone policy.
Which is?
But that's what you voted against.
Which is,
Well, I mean, it's right here on page 20, it says cell phone policy. Cell phones, earbuds are not permitted for use at sashes except for lunch. From the time students arrive in the building in the morning until they are dismissed at the end of the day, all cell phones and earbuds must be turned off and kept in the student's locker except during lunch. Pagers are prohibited by state law. And it goes on, electronic devices include all devices that can take photographs, record, play, or edit audio or video data, store, transmit, or receive calls, messages, text, data, or images, operate online applications, or provide a wireless, unfiltered connection to the internet. And then it goes on with like explaining the consequences of breaking the policy, or the rule.
But that doesn't match the handbook, right?
That is the handbook.
That is the handbook. It does
But that's
not
the
match policy.
But
So-
policy, doesn't policy set the district? Isn't the district run by policy?
The policy states, and I can read it again.
I understand what that, but I'm saying, does policy rule the district?
So the policy states that building principals, in consultation with the superintendent and in compliance with board policy, administrative regulations, and rules, are authorized to determine the extent of the use of electronic devices within their buildings.
Okay, so does that match, all I'm asking, does a policy match the handbook?
In my opinion, yes. In Ms. Everly's opinion, it does not.
In my opinion, it does
And
too.
there was 5 no's that didn't.
Well, I don't know why you all voted no. I didn't.
But you can't tell me what I should do and what I shouldn't.
I didn't.
You
I'm
continuously,
not telling
you continuously criticize somebody coming, they don't vote for you. I'm going to say what I want and do what I want.
I am not criticizing.
Hey, like-
I'm asking why you voted no. I'm saying I don't
None
know
of your
why you
business.
voted no.
I got a right.
We just want an explanation, Fred. We're not saying you can't vote no.
I know that. But then why I got to give you an explanation? You only got one vote like me.
You're not giving me an explanation. You're giving the community an explanation because
We're trying to like maybe work out some verbiage. Like in the handbook, it literally says cell phone policy, cell phones. I think part of my I don't even think it's confusion. Like the handbook says cell phone policy. The district does not have a cell phone policy. We have an electronic device policy. So the handbook says cell phone policy. Cell phones and earbuds are not permitted for use at sashes except during lunch. The board has not adopted a cell phone policy, and the electronic device policy says that you can have it in the hall. It literally says you can't have it in the bathrooms, locker rooms, health suite. So if the district is if the handbook's going to say that we have a cell phone policy, then maybe the policy committee needs to get together and have a cell phone actual policy, because we don't have one. The handbook says that we do, but we do not have a policy.
So if the handbook read cell phone rule, you'd be okay with it?
But also, again, we're picking apart the actual policy that is stating of what everything that is considered an electronic device. And it says, so again, it comes down to consistency within the district, because who's to say that Mrs. Burt's she might allow my student to have earbuds in, but Mr. Donovan's class is not. So at the end of the day, the principal is going to hand out punishment. But then if I'm a parent and I call and say, well, my kid got in trouble for having their phone out, well, in the same building, this teacher allowed it, this person didn't, but then when you go to policy, the kid maybe had it out in an area where they were, but actually it was supposed to be in their locker, but our actual policy says they're allowed to have it in the hallway. So it does come down to consistency. Different teachers run their classrooms different. Our principals don't govern every single classroom. They give their teachers freedoms within fences.
So I'm still confused. Because from what you just said, Ms. Everly, it sounds like you want a consistent policy, and the handbook is providing a consistent, I hesitate to call it a policy, a consistent set of behaviors that are expected across all of the classrooms in the high school and the middle school, which seems to be what you're saying you want. Am I not hearing that correctly?
if we can change the verbiage, again, like acceptable, yes, acceptable, but don't call it a policy when it is indeed not a policy.
So don't call what a policy?
In the handbook, on page 20, it literally says cell phone policy, and it's highlighted in yellow. So in my opinion, well, it's not an opinion, it's fact, because it's not indeed a policy. It's a recommendation, because policy literally lays it out there.
Well, what if we just call it a rule?
And I would just clarify, I mean, this is the high school handbook. So, I mean, I think that policy is not meaning board policy. It means the policy of the high school to deal with cell phones. So, just to clarify.
Well, I didn't see anywhere else in the handbook where they referred to something being a policy except for this item. But they also, under this electronic devices policy 2, they actually call it 237, but then have a separate like line item for cell phones.
So what would need to change in the policy in the high school handbook for you to find it in agreement with board policy?
Well, for one, I don't think that having cell phones out only at lunchtime is beneficial when we're talking about mental health and students need to be socially interacting and engaging with each other, but instead they're going to be on their phones trying to catch up with messages or whatever, instead of actually interacting and having conversations with other human beings. I mean, I think that cell phones in the hallways.
If that's the case, I believe that's what the middle school does. From the time the kids get there in the morning to the time they go home, I think the phones are turned off and in their lockers. So if we really want it to be reflective and absolute in connection with each other, then that would be the way to do it. I think that the administration at the high school probably gave a little bit of leniency out of older kids about
So they don't
lunchtime and
run out of town.
I'm sorry, say it again.
So they don't get run out of town.
So that is where I think the difference came from. But in general, I mean, I haven't met one teacher yet who has told me that they are upset about the idea of cell phones not being allowed in their classrooms. And Friday morning is the first in-service day where everybody's here, and I would invite everyone to ask a secondary teacher, hey, do you want cell phones to be out or allowed in your classes? And I would be stunned if you got any high percentage of them, because they come to school every day, they want to work, they want to teach, they want to be teachers, not babysitters of kids on social media and doing things on their phones. And I think that's what's kind of been lost in all this, is that we have an opportunity Friday, we've had all summer, but you have an opportunity Friday morning to ask every single educator that you meet, and I'd be willing to bet that almost all of them are going to tell you that they don't want phones in their classrooms.
But are we arguing that? I mean, the thing.
I think that I would feel much better, instead of the handbook saying cell phone policy, it'd say cell phone etiquette. I mean, literally, if the cell phones are turned off in class and they're put away, again, I'm okay with some of the offenses.
Well, how about just cell phones, right? I mean, earlier when it talks about attendance, it doesn't say attendance policy, it just says attendance. So we could just say, we just call that heading cell phones, and then the rule is explained. How about that?
But then the actual policy says that they're allowed to have them in the hallway, so that this handbook is not stating that they can have it out there.
Policy says it's up to the principals.
And I would just clarify, I mean, possession in the hallway, I think we have to determine possessing it or having it in the hallway is one thing, using it in the hallway is another, using it in the bathroom is another. So I think it's really coming down, or the intent is, where is a kid using his or her cell phone? We don't want that happening during instruction. And if they're carrying it to lunch, then it's permitted to be in lunch. I think that's something that's a nuanced look at that. They're allowed to have them in the hallway if they're coming to and from lunch, to and from their locker. I think Mrs. Luffy talked about not being the cell phone police and and, tackling kids that, we can see the outline of a cell phone in their back pocket. It's really down to what's happening during the instructional time where a teacher would want a student's undivided attention.
It's more than that. I mean, if we're talking about bullying and all these other issues that go on with this, that's going to stop just because we're not doing it in class? No, it's going to go on, period. I'll be glad to vote and forward the handbooks. I don't want school to stop because we don't have the handbooks.
Yeah,
But we need to iron out this cell phone thing because either it is or it isn't. And we already had all the facts given to us by our own administrators saying this isn't a good thing to have, and most of the country's going away from it. So,
Mr. Carey, not to interrupt
whenever
you,
you want.
are you advocating for a stronger policy where they're not allowed
Yes,
at all?
that's what I said, across the board, done. We don't need them.
I believe that would require a policy, a board policy change.
We need to finish this discussion some other point or time here.
So in the absolute interest of time, partly because we've all been here for over 4 hours, secondly because I got to go to work in another 25 minutes. Can we, where are we at in terms of what we're going to vote on or not vote on here?
So it sounds, I may be stretching things a bit here, but it sounds like there might be a smidgen of consensus if we were to say that we want the middle school and the high school policies to match each other, which would mean that cell phones stay in lockers or are not in, I don't know, someone can clarify what the middle school one is, but.
I don't think the middle school, all their kids put their phones in locker. I know a young lady that.
So what is the middle school?
So it's the same policy, and I think what the high school is trying to replicate is, as long as it's not out in a class, if it's in a back pocket, people aren't trying to find them.
So in the middle school, but in the middle school, they can't have them in the hallway or at lunch.
Correct.
Mr. August, if I can, I have the middle school one right here. Cell phones and earbuds are not permitted for use at SAMS. From the time students arrive in the building in the morning until they are dismissed at the end of the day, all cell phones and earbuds must be turned off and kept in the students' lockers. Pagers are prohibited by state law. And then it goes on to talk about what electronic devices are and all that, and then goes through the offenses, first offense, second offense, everything else. So in theirs, it clearly says stays in the locker all day long.
But they ain't putting them in there. I got 3.
Right, so
But if one of those kids doesn't put it in their locker, they are putting themselves up to violating at the first offense and then be punished for that. We can't fool ourselves. There's always going to be there's going to be high school kids that show up with burner cell phones to think they're cool to try to beat something if we do it. That's just the way it is. Understand that, but at the same time, if you put a full ban on, or if we just say this hey, no phones out, phones go in your locker during the day. That's across the board, and then if anything is found, then unfortunately, that student is in their first offense violation where it's turned into the office and can be picked up by the student at the end of that day.
Yeah, and I would just reiterate, I think if you talk to the middle school, they implemented this last year, I think cell phones are far less of a problem there. I'm not saying that it's perfect, but they navigated that, and I think the high school saw that and listened to their teachers and said, we'd like to do the same thing. And that's kind of how we landed here.
So in the interest of time, I would like to make a motion that we approve the middle school and the high school handbooks where the cell phone language matches across both schools.
It already does,
They already do.
Well, the difference is that the high school says except during lunch.
Right.
Okay.
That sounded like that got a few more people on board. So that's my motion.
Is there a second?
Mike, you didn't like that? I thought you.
Once again, I'm not sure. Or is it middle school across the board?
It's just
we
middle school,
were talking
high
about that
school.
earlier.
So I think Dr. Lyman, his motion is that the cell phone, the
Handbook.
The cell phone rule in the handbook mirror that of the middle school. So that would mean that what is written in yellow
Locked
in
up
your
all day long.
draft would be as it is, except striking except during lunch. So cell phones and earbuds are not permitted for use at sashes, is what the handbook would read. That's the motion. Is that correct, Dr. Lyman?
That is correct.
So they wouldn't have them all day.
No, they would not.
Where would the phones be stored at during school
No,
hours?
Locker.
The expectation would be the locker, but as Mrs. Luffy reiterated, folks, if it's not a problem, I can't say that we're going to be hunting them down to punish kids. The point isn't to punish kids. The point is to preserve the integrity of the instructional time.
What about device-free facility completely?
So, I mean, I'll comment on that. We have, at the high school, we have kids that drive to school. And my kids are too young to drive, but I can tell you that I wouldn't want my kid to go out driving knowing their cell phone has to stay at home because we have no devices at the high school, which is why I think that this is probably a good thing what we're currently looking at.
They can leave in their car.
I mean, iPhones cost $1,500 and it's 97 degrees out the first day of school. I'm not willing to listen to parents complain. No offense to any parents, but I would complain too if a phone gets fried. Or in the wintertime when it's down to 10 degrees out. I mean, there's just no way that I would support that.
I just think it's going to be hard to monitor, but I'm kind of like Levi. We've been here for how many hours? I could probably live with what we got right now. The kids could at least have them during lunch and in the parking lot or whatever. Is that going to stop bullying? I'd say no, my opinion. I still think you're going to get the bullying. I don't think that's going to matter. It's kind of like just flip a coin, which way you want to go.
Mr. Board, you're right. I don't think it fully stops bullying, but I think what it also does is if you go with that, then it puts more emphasis on kids being engaged in the classroom and getting a better education and being fully invested. So the bullying, we have to be realistic. It's a cultural, it's a societal thing. It's never going to go away, no matter what you try to do. So, but I do think that, does it limit some of it? Absolutely. But does it do what I think everybody wants is to get kids to get the best education possible? And I think that's the end result that we should all be looking for every kid that comes to school here.
Well, Dr. Lyman, I'll second your motion. So the cell phone policy in the handbook would read, cell phones and earbuds are not permitted for use at sashes from the time that students arrive in the building in the morning until they are dismissed at the end of the day. All cell phones, earbuds must be turned off and kept in students' locker.
So, Jim, they would not have them at lunch.
I mean,
Or the hallway.
I got lost. I thought we were just trying to get the handbook to match the policy. That's all it was. The eliminating all this stuff wasn't part of it. Just the handbook has one thing. The policy has something. Policy is the Bible, from my understanding, the Bible of the school district. Why can't we have the handbook just match the policy and then get it over with?
Because then we wouldn't have a handbook for the first day of school. So Dr. Lyman made a motion for the high school handbook to mirror what the middle school is, and that is cell phones are not permitted.
I don't care about that.
At all, not in the hallways and not at lunch.
Yeah, I personally think they're ought to have them at lunch, but whatever, I mean.
Christy, can you do, I'm going to call the question. So the motion is the cell phone verbiage, the cell phone expectation in the handbook is that cell phones and earbuds are not permitted, period, from the time students arrive in the building in the mornings until they are dismissed at the end of the day, and all cell phones and earbuds must be turned off and kept in the student's locker, except, actually, not even during lunch. Pagers are prohibited, so no cell phones at all.
Are we still discussing?
No,
So
call the question.
What's that?
I called the question.
I have no idea.
We're going to vote.
Okay, well, the thing I was going to say was wondering where people felt on this, because some people like the idea of those kids being able to use their phones at lunch or in the hallway between class. So I know that we just said, okay, we're going to completely match the middle school, which I'm perfectly fine with, but I'm just curious to hear again where people were but I guess we'll find out right here as we vote.
And
I mean,
I am happy to amend the motion to let the high school students use them in the hallways in the lunchroom.
well, if you want to amend the motion back to the original handbooks, I'll amend the second.
Yeah, well, let's do it.
Okay. I've amended the second. So did you guys follow along where we are?
Yes.
No.
So we're back to the original.
Back to the original draft of the middle school and high school handbooks.
So we're voting on the original.
Yes, ma'am.
Christine, I mean,
So there we go. Thank you.
that's what cell phone,
So I will amend my amendment and say that it will just say cell phone etiquette. Is that good?
What they said.
Not just cell phones.
Just cell phone?
Cell phones.
Cell phones, just like everything else. Okay. That way it's a different motion because the previous motion failed. So the new motion is to change the language in the handbook so that it now says just cell phones, not cell phone policy.
Seconded.
a motion made by Dr. Lyman, second by Dr. Goetz. We've discussed this thing to death. Christy, can you roll call, please?
Mr. Mike Carey.
What am I voting for?
Mr. Carey, we're voting on the.
You can rub your head all you want.
They're both the original handbook drafts that were on the agenda.
With the removal of the word policy where it says cell phone, is my understanding, Dr. Lyman?
Yes.
So nothing's changed about
No.
the policy.
It's the removal of that word.
And the principal has the right to do whatever she wants.
Well,
yes.
Was there no policy?
I'll vote yes, as long as we continue this discussion at another time.
Mr. Levi Kressler.
Yes.
Dr. Nathan Goetz.
yes.
Dr. Michael Lyman.
Yes.
Mr. Fred Scott.
Yes.
Mr. Jim Bard.
Yes.
Mr. Darren Donovan.
No.
Mrs. Steph Eberly.
No.
Motion carried.
Thank you for the hard work.
So moving on with board comments, Mr. Scott.
I just want to make a motion about, can we look into the position of a music teacher, full-time, part-time, or retirements? Can we look into the position?
So
I make a motion that we look into the position of hiring a full-time, part-time.
So there's a motion on the table for Mr. Scott to explore a full-time or part-time music teacher for the Shippensburg Area School District.
Second.
Second by Mr. Bard. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Mr. Carey. Mr. Carey, any board comments tonight?
I apologize to the public for having to go through this long. The biggest thing is, once again, I don't know why, if somebody knew this was going to be an issue, why tonight, a week before school's going to happen? I asked for a cell phone policy to be discussed 3 months ago in policy team, and here we are. You know, whether it got shot down or didn't get shot down, that was several months ago. But no, we're here a week before, so for that part, sorry about that.
He asked in policy committee.
If you want it to be.
Specific. Mr. Kressler.
Yep, I'll be quick. Fall sports are all in full systems go as of today. Like the middle school sports, I think, started, middle school football and stuff. Our high school sports, boys, girls soccer, volleyball was in here tonight when we got here. Good luck to all those teams. Friday, as I said earlier, is the first day of in-service. I actually look forward to that every year. It's one of my favorite days where I get to see everybody in one spot because it's so hard to do, but I do generally enjoy that. And one more thing, I was going to say about the community night, but Mr. Hess 3 hours ago gave a great talk about that. And finally, though, the Greyhound Foundation Golf Tournament is Sunday, August 25th. I saw a social media post today where they were still looking for a couple more teams. Cool event, go golf. Grass should be great because we just got a bunch of rain the last week. That's it. Thank you.
Mr. Bard.
No, nothing.
Dr. Goetz.
Nothing, thanks.
Mr. Donovan.
Yeah, I got two things. I would like to make a motion in regards to a K through 12 swim program. I'd like to see exact cost on that and get a discussion going around that. I at least want to make the public aware that we are listening to you. I feel like having a K through 12 swim program is something that's very important for our community. So I'd make a motion to get that on discussion.
So Mr. Donovan has made a motion to discuss a K through 12 swimming program. Is there a second?
Red Scott, second.
Can I get a little clarification? Are we talking about?
Just discussion of what it would take, K through 12. Not something that would clearly happen overnight, but to plan, whether if it's having a little, to start putting money in a certain fund or start planning for what it would take to happen, how many positions do we need, because,
I think I provided that in an update.
that was for the current status quo program.
No, ma'am, that was for
Is that covering K
full-time,
through 12?
a full-time swimming aquatics instructor and another person to be the lifeguard and locker room service. So I can relook those numbers. I think Mrs. Lentz gave them to me sometime.
Can we have Ms. Christy Johnson? She's head of the physical fitness department. I'd like her to come here and tell us exactly why we need her and why we don't. She wants to deal with the teachers and everything. Can she be a part of the community as a whole?
I can invite her, Mr. Scott.
Thank you.
So I'm sorry, I derailed the motion.
No. Was there a second?
I second. I thought I said
Second
second.
to Mr. Scott. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
And then second thing, I'd like to get a motion going for a evaluation on staffing and the efficiencies of the following departments: business, health services, human resources, maintenance and operations, music, student services, technology, and transportation. I want to have this done by PASBO or a private independent company.
We're already trying to get pricing for that, Mr. Donovan.
Okay. I just wanted to make the board aware of it, and if it needs a motion or get it on for discussion.
I mean, what I would recommend is like we can get pricing on it, and that that can be added to the agenda for discussion.
Okay.
Hey, so moved if you need one. If you don't, throw it out.
Yeah, I don't know that we need a
I know
motion.
that they're already, they're en route, just, when we review the agenda, just to, check up on that.
All right. That's everything for me.
All right. I really don't have a whole lot. I just want to thank the public for bearing with us. And, while it's really frustrating for us as board members to sit up here and kind of have it out, I mean, at least, there is conversation happening of why some of us vote yes and vote no. It's better than, just no votes. So I do definitely appreciate, even if they are differing opinions, when you may be passionate about something or not, but the community know where you stand and why you stand. Friday, Teacher in Service Day. Board members, mark your calendars, attend if you can. And yeah, I'm done.
I just wanted to acknowledge Mrs. Lentz and say thank you for your hard work, and good luck with the Bulldogs.
So
Information date savers, August 14th is the Athletic Committee, August 22nd is the Facilities Committee, and August 21st is the first day back to school for our students.